I got to make sure everything fits on my screen. All right. Let the fucking hijinks begin, kids. Our first debaters of the night. All right. Sorry, gentlemen. I'm jumping into the middle of your conversation, but we're going to go ahead and get this kicked off. All right. Debate number one, everybody. And like I said, we're going to get this kicked off as soon as that timer runs down. The debaters are each going to have 1 minute on the clock for their openings. Then they're going to have a 10-minute muddle. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about muddle. They're going to have a 10-minute cross, and then they're going to have 1 minute closings on each of them. Then open discussion. Yeah, there you go. Then after that, I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock for you guys to get your votes in. Hopefully you guys vote. Even if there's 2 people who fucking vote, that's who votes. So we're going to have a lot of these tonight. So just make sure, and I've got them all set up, so I should be able to drop them in there quick, and we should be able to keep this thing rolling. So, all right, with no further questions, I assume we're not even going to be able to like zoom in on people and do all those cool things. So we're just going to start this right out. Energy. 1 minute is on the clock for you, sir. You are on the affirmative. Please tell us why there should be a separation of hard science and soft science.
Distinction between the nature of human knowledge. On the one hand, we have the soft sciences, the sciences of human nature, the sciences of psychology, economics, sociology, etc. With these sciences, it is impossible, if not, or at the very least, very difficult to control for variables, make falsifiable, testable experiments, and in general, make things that are quantitatively valid, which is why most social scientists reject, you know, I can't speak for them, but the good social scientists reject trying to reduce their fields to physics. Fields like physics, chemistry, and biology make falsifiable, mathematically rigorous claims, and so there should be a fundamental distinction between them.
All right, perfect. And just so everybody knows, I'm going to be much stricter than usual on the actual clock because, like I said, we got people backed up. We got a bunch up tonight, so we're going to be kind of strict on that. But Ancom, your turn. 1 minute on the clock. Tell us why there should not be a separation of hard science and soft science.
Sorry, I just pulled up the stream in order to view the clock, so I had to mute that real quick.
Oh, is it not above my head because you can't see me? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I cannot see you in the Discord, so I had to pull up the stream just so I could keep an eye on the clock.
All right. Whenever you're ready, let's start.
All right. So the prompt assumes that the categories of hard and soft are coherent, definable categories. The problem is energy needs to actually demonstrate this. If we can't precisely define, then we can't practically implement any sort of separation. In their opening, my opponent mentioned mathematics and predictability as a couple of the criteria. The problem is there are sciences like cosmology, whose foundation rests on the unobserved phenomena of dark matter and dark energy. Neither of these have been directly observed. We infer them based on the motions and behaviors of other bodies, and we do not have rigorous, testable, predictable data surrounding these. The same is true when you look at things like string theory and cosmic inflation. These are not currently falsifiable, and yet cosmology, astrophysics, quantum physics, these are among the hardest sciences that I believe my opponent would argue for. So the problem here is the main issue is there is no clear delineation between them. It is a Loki's wager problem. There may be, or there are
Time is up.
degrees.
Everybody, because
Bring it
they're
up.
Yep.
Nope.
streaming
You
this
go ahead
through
and tie it off.
Discord, the audio is going to have to come.
Oh, I was just going to say,
through
there are degrees of what one
their
might call
channel here
hardness,
whenever
but you
we're
cannot
doing
find
that.
any
So,
particular
I will mute
delineation
myself
between
until
a
I'm
hard
actually
and a
on their
soft
channel,
science.
and you'll be able
All
to
right,
hear me
cheers.
the same as
So I'm
everybody
actually,
else
after
through
this,
it.
because this is the first time we're doing this, I'm going to be learning as we go. I think I'm actually going to give people like a 30 or maybe like a 10-second warning, 10-second warning so they can sort of bring it down. I'm putting 10 minutes on the clock. This is just open cross. Go ahead, get at it, gentlemen.
Okay,
All right.
so the first question I would have for you is, oh, dang. How do you define science?
Well,
Like, what's the criteria?
given that given that you're the AF, I would say that the definition is on you, but my personal definition would be anything that looks to follow the scientific method, which is to say make observations, create testable predictions that can be tested either via experiment or direct observation, and then revise your ideas about what is true about the world in which we live over iterative successions of observation and hypothesis.
Okay. I'm trying to think. What you're saying is good for the natural sciences, but the problem is with the soft sciences, you can't create testable predictions because there's too many variables. Like, so for example, are you familiar with the concept of empirical underdetermination?
Yes.
So empirical just for the audience, it's basically, as I understand it, the idea that there are some theories where two theories can explain the same data equally well. So basically, when you're talking about underdetermination, you're talking about the problem that you can have a coherent model from that explains it that are contradictory. With there was a lot more underdetermination in the soft sciences than in the hard sciences, because with the hard sciences they're more deterministic, and so you can control for behavior, but of the like particles and stuff. And yes, there's indeterminism with quantum physics, but with human behavior, there's so much stochasticity that you can't really create easily testable hypotheses to choose between them.
You absolutely can, though. We create hypotheses and test predictions within the fields of psychiatry, psychology, economics, econometrics, sociology, and a whole host of others that many would consider soft sciences. We create and test predictions in all of these fields. This is not a question of whether some are hard and some are soft. It is a question of degree to which we can or cannot control for some variables. But that doesn't mean that we should be separating them into these hard and fast categories of hard and soft, which I continue to emphasize. You cannot give me a clear delineation point.
Well,
you can give me the obvious ones, but where are the edge cases? You said economics was a soft science. There are a lot of people who disagree and consider it a very hard science because it
quantitative finance is a hard science.
We'll be on
Say again?
live.
Quantitative finance. Quantitative finance is a hard
It's
science.
kind of a ratchet ass setup.
Okay, and so the fact that we take quantitative finance,
we are on
which tends
third.
to
This is number
look
one,
at the
then
actions
second
of
debate, third debate.
individuals
Each
and
debate
small
under
groups like
15
companies,
minutes out the
as soon as
door.
you start scaling that up to look at the financial decisions of entire societies, then it becomes soft somehow. How's that work?
Quantitative, if it's not too much to ask, how good is your mathematical ability? Like, are you good with like linear algebra, multivariable calculus, calculus-based statistics, stochastic calculus?
I'm not really good with calculus. I haven't studied it much.
Okay, how about linear algebra?
I know some about linear algebra, not a ton.
Okay, I'm majoring in finance, and I have to take statistics, probability theory, calculus, and my professors recommend I self-study multivariable and stochastic calculus. Quantitative finance, which is not the field that I'm going into, is even more mathematically rigorous and involves stochastic calculus. Like, the level of mathematical precision in quantitative finance is fundamentally different from something like psychology. Like, come on.
I mean, do you not think they use statistics and calculus in psychology? Because they've got to, like, when you're doing group dynamics, when you're studying large quantities of data, you have to use advanced statistics to be able to judge anything at all with any accuracy. All of these fields use advanced statistics. There is a reason why statistician is a specific need for almost every scientific project, because it's needed literally everywhere. Statistics is all throughout the sciences, whether you would categorize them as hard or soft. The quantitative aspect of it exists everywhere. That's how we gather data. That's how we interpret data. That's how we analyze the data to understand the results that we are given, so that we can then take those results and put them into new hypotheses and test them further. It's an iterative thing. And this is actually another point that I was going to bring up, which is the interdisciplinary nature of science as a whole. By creating these arbitrary separations, you're not only creating disincentives toward these sorts of interdisciplinary practices, but also creating and reinforcing biases that already exist against the things that you would call soft sciences. So,
Well, there should be a bias against
how do you prevent this sort of
because
categorization from resulting in, you know, people doubting, underfunding, you know, research being
they
shut
should be
down,
underfunded.
considered a soft science?
They should be underfunded. We should focus our priorities on things with better mental. But also, you mentioned this idea of science, but you're familiar with like the Wittgenstein point of like family resemblance, right? Like Wittgenstein uses the example of chair. Well, you can use a tree for a chair. You can use a rock for a chair. So was there something as a chair depends on your purposes. And similarly, this Wittgenstein point about family resemblance, couldn't that be used for science as well, where there's not a clear boundary, but you can make delineations based on family resemblance?
I mean, Wittgenstein's point was that the definition of an object can be brought down to its use. If you take that same argument for sciences, you end up with a situation where I could potentially use psychology or group psychology, individual psychology, sociology, or hell, neuropsychology, neuropsychiatry, just neurobiology generally. Any of these would work to determine certain aspects of human behavior. Some might be more quantitatively focused and some more qualitatively focused. But if you're looking at any large group of people, as every single one of those fields would be, you are still looking at statistical probabilities, statistical models to understand the data. The difference is where you start. Whether you start from brain function or whether you start from the, you know, human interaction, both have value, do they not?
They have value, but the difference is that so the Wittgenstein family resemblance concept is the idea that yes, it's based on use, but it's contextual. And the idea is you don't have to have a predefined essence. You can just say, well, what is the pragmatic purpose within a context? And similarly, you can say, well, is something a soft science or hard science? Well, there's not a clear boundary, and so it can be either soft science or hard science, but depending on the purpose it's used for. But that's what I'm saying. There's still a delineation, right? And then also you mentioned Popper's criteria of falsification, and we'll just real quick. Are you going to abide by
falsification? I've already addressed this in my opening, but like
but that's why I consider string theory pseudoscience.
Sciences that have unfalsifiable claims.
That's why I don't consider string theory to be real physics. I don't consider string theory to be real part. At least the unfalsifiable elements of string theory are not real physical science.
So you don't think cosmic inflation counts as science? Because string theory, cosmic inflation, these are foundational parts of astrophysics, quantum mechanics, cosmology, etc.
Most physicists are not working on string theory. In fact, quantum gravity is itself
theory. They're not working on string theory, but they're certainly working with some of the developments that string theory brought us, of which most are unfalsifiable. They're working on assertion, not on falsifiable data.
1 minute left on the clock.
I mean, I just think it's clear that if something can't be disproven, it's not a valuable postulate for the physical sciences, because the physical sciences grow by making testable predictions. With human behavior, it's not really as testable because there are more variables to collect for. You can still argue for falsification there, but it's a little bit more difficult.
There may be more variables, but that doesn't mean hypotheses aren't falsifiable. We have falsified successfully many, many different predictions of psychology over the last century. We have managed to narrow our ability to understand psychology because of that precise falsification. And the problem with your criteria of falsification in the first place is the replication crisis. Within physics, you're aware of the replication crisis, I assume, but for those who aren't, it is the problem that we have so many results that we have gathered over the past century that attempts to replicate those results have failed, But the problem is most of those replications or those failures have not been published. And so we don't know that we failed to reproduce those results. And so we take them as scientific truth, even though they're not.
That's time.
And this replication crisis exists throughout science.
Go ahead if you have something to say. Well, actually, energy.
That was my,
It's yep. No, I was going to give energy the same amount of extra there, but it's all right. Energy. Well, you've got a whole minute to yourself, so you can respond to it in your closing. Like I said, we're being pretty strict on this. And yes, if you guys in the chat do have questions, please go ahead and throw a couple bucks in that. We'll add a little bit of time to this. If you have questions, just tell me what the question is and to which debater. And go ahead if you are ready. Energy, 1 minute's on the clock. Closing thoughts.
Okay, so we need to differentiate. He mentioned cosmic inflation. Well, I don't know too much about cosmic inflation. My understanding is that the standard model of cosmology, which is the Big Bang by Lemaître, is based on Einstein's general relativity, which is falsifiable. And in fact, Eddington tried to falsify it, which is why Popper gave it the criteria of the most scientific theory and called Einstein basically the most genius scientist because he tried to falsify his theory. But basically, no, I don't consider unfalsifiable things like string theory to be part of the physical sciences. And it's pretty clear when you look at how unstable markets are, for example, that trying to create a science of markets in the same way you create a science of physics is ridiculous. But in any event, I'll let my opponent have his opening. Closing, sorry.
That's all right. And Com, 1 minute's on the clock now for you, sir. Go ahead and put your cherry on top.
So in this debate, my opponent argued that the distinction exists, but that there's not any way to enforce it. Argued that there isn't a precise definition, which I think backs up my point. Their clearest examples were the easiest cases. They mention Einstein and general relativity and the fact that that was easily falsifiable. Sure, but the problem is there are a lot of edge cases where falsifiability is either completely missing or much harder to achieve. Should we just toss those out as soft sciences? I mean, the hardest sciences that we have don't fit this model. He's saying it. String theory doesn't count as a science. String theory's been a backbone of modern theoretical physics for 3 decades. The criterion they're giving excludes some of the most well-accepted items from hard science. They're using a fuzzy definition, but never really giving us a good way to make that delineation.
All right. Good stuff.
A lot harder to do with 1 minute.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. This short clock is fucking crazy, right? So I think some of the debates tonight are going to be are going to fit well with it, and some of them are a little tougher. But that's okay. That's kind of part of the fun to this is making you guys fucking. All right, chatters. I'm going to drop the link here again. If you guys have any questions, now is the time that those are going to pop up, and I'm going to be able to ask the questions of the debaters while you guys are voting. You got 5 minutes on the clock. When that clock goes out, that's when the votes are going to be locked in, and we're going to go ahead and move on to our next debate. I do want to say thank you both for showing up. Both of you guys, little bit of. I'm going to be showing some appreciation to everybody tonight. I think because everybody who's playing tonight and tomorrow night are people who are here all the time. I have watched you become better and better at debate energy, and it is definitely fun to watch. And I know that you have got a long ways to go still. That you're going to keep getting better. And Com, dude, you really are the GOAT at what you do. Like you are able to. It was for those of you who don't know this. Energy proposed a little bit of a bet, a little wager before this, and I'm not going to get into too many of the details, but part of it was Ancom giving up the SciCom part of his name if he lost, and the fact is, yeah, he puts it in words that even small little smooth brains like myself can understand. So. I think that science communication is indeed what your fucking tism gave you. So, but that's the other thing I was going to say is watching the two of y'all sword fight fucking makes me so happy. I have been trying to cook this up for a long time, and to have the right prompt and the two of y'all on the right night. This tells me though that we're going to actually have to have a proper science night, and if both of you guys are available and willing, we're going to have the two of y'all go on an actual science prompt sometime. So. I do a 3v3 because I know that's your preference, Ancom, but who the fuck else can keep up with the two of y'all? You know what I mean? So
fair enough.
Like, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put my put the link for voting into the other two platforms if they're even live. I think they are. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, and I guess neither of y'all is streaming,
I'm sorry.
correct?
I just saw Leafy's comment in the chat. Stop hitting him, man. He's already dead.
That's it. Yeah. Um.
But no, honestly, Energy, I think you did a really good job there. I prepped a fair bit for this debate. You threw me some curveballs that I didn't see coming. I know how much you love Wittgenstein, and for some reason, he didn't come up in my research. So well done there.
Well, you know what?
I mean, I like the philosophy sense.
I don't want to get too much into like swaying the audience, but I will say that the two arguments, first of all, that stood out to me was Energy saying that string theory is not real physics, and you brought it back around to that, Ancom. I thought that was a wild fucking take, and I would love to hear them go through that and kind of like pull that fucking line of thinking apart. I'd like to hear more of that. And for you, Ancom, whenever you mentioned the fact that statistics are used in literally all sciences, regardless of how soft or hard they are, like it kind of shows that the sciences don't need to be separated. Like I thought both of those were the most interesting standout points for me for the night. So
yeah, and there were a number of points that I couldn't get to just because the limited time. It was really hard to try and get through all of the things that I wanted to. I was having to do a lot of mixing and matching on the fly, so it was a tough one.
Yeah,
definitely gave me a run for my money.
What were you about to say there? Energy?
I was just to say, yeah. I mean, I think everything you said was spot on. I think I'm right, but of course I do. But I do think, even if I lost, at least I stood by my guns, and yeah.
That you did, and you were up against a worthy opponent, my friend. So again, anybody who
I
loses
was.
to Ancom he has been called the end boss of the DMZ. So I mean, and he's not wrong.
Yeah.
I don't even agree with that. I've lost enough times in this place that I am absolutely not that, in my opinion. But
So
if it's a topic that I'm passionate on, I know I can argue quite well. I'm not great on those topics that I don't really have a strong opinion on, or steel manning. I grant that, but this is why I try to keep in my wheelhouse for debates, and so there's a bit of survivorship bias, or as surgeons kind of massage their own statistics by picking and choosing which surgeries they think they can do successfully. I do kind of the same thing with debates. So
fair enough. And Ancom, you've been doing this long enough to know that just because the audience votes one way or the other doesn't mean you're not good at this. The audience is fickle. So, all right, everybody, clock is running out. I'm dropping this link one last time. Get those last minute votes locked in. I should see like 28 votes in there. God damn it. Like, tell us who you thought made the most compelling case. All right. And
And can I make a quick point to Ancom?
You sure can.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pulling it up.
So I do think Ancom, while I understand, like, I don't want this to sound like rude, but I do think if you're going to be a science communicator, at least conceptually understanding the mathematics is important. Like, because mathematics is the language of science, right? Like, you can't really do science without mathematics. And so if you're not, if you don't at least know like of what the notation means when you're talking about like a differential equation or whatever, like I think that is not going to help you for your science communication. Just my opinion, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you might be right, but at the same time, my goal is to make things as intuitively understandable as possible. Yes, it would definitely be helpful for me to understand the science. I do not disagree there. But I think my skill is taking science that has been that has been accomplished and finding ways to make it intuitively understandable for other people insofar as I understand it. And I try very hard to make sure I understand it in a way that makes intuitive sense to me. So you're right. I should definitely be studying more math to be able to understand a lot of these things better. But I also, think I do a decent job at explaining complex concepts in simple ways so that people can better understand them in at least a surface level. I'm not looking to give a fucking, master's dissertation to people to get them to understand the basics.
Especially given the fact that what is jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like, you're able to at least give a cursory understanding of so many different things, even if you can't do the absolute bee's knees on anyone particular. All right, so real quick, I know we could keep talking, we could have a whole night, but we got to get through this as you guys heard. So Energy, I love you, buddy. But it is an overwhelming decision in favor of ANCOM. 9-1 out of the, let's see, we've got 17 votes to 1 vote. So by overwhelming decision, 9-1, ANCOM takes home the victory. Why is my applause button not working? What the fuck? Why is the applause button not working? God damn it, whatever. All right. So
God loves me.
yeah, there you go. It won't allow me to play. Yeah, clap for you. But great job, gentlemen. I appreciate both of y'all.
We'll give you divine intervention on that one.
Yep, there you go. All right, y'all. Great one tonight. Appreciate you guys. I will see both of y'all. No, I think I will see both of y'all tomorrow night as well. So tomorrow night is, of course, whenever both of y'all will be debating me. So have a great night. And ANCOM, yeah, let me know if you have any questions or anything like that. I sent you everything. So appreciate you, buddy. Have a great night, y'all.
All right. Bye.
All right. So let's see. We're going to go ahead and pull in our next 2 debaters in just 1 second. Let me go ahead and get everything swapped over real quick. Give me 1 second, everybody. Control copy. Prompt. Control PV. Good. Boom. Okay.
Hey there,
And this is
Groofus.
gonna
Thank you
be
so much,
between-
brother. Appreciate you. I'm just kind of chatting through the breaks
Hey,
here.
on the
I thought that was
F.
pretty good. I think it's interesting because we're going to hear a little about how much
And
bullshit string theory is in our debate too. So
Groofus
it'll be an evergreen topic. Don't get him,
negative.
Groofus. Groofus, come up on the negs. Get some fucking eyeballs, Groofus.
Oh, just so
do
you
this
guys
thing.
know, I woke up sick as a fucking dog today. So I'm trying to pull this off. If there's any lag, y'all just forgive me, okay? All right, let's bring them in. We got 1 and we got 2. Gentlemen, if you would both put on your cams of some sort. I know Cam K, you're not going to cam completely, but if you could do your fancy little magic, and that way it should put y'all in the appropriate places. If I did this right. Or we can just look into the creepy eyes. There you go. Oh, Pluto's in the fucking house. All right, great stuff. So you gentlemen both know how this is going to work. We're going to have 1 minute openings from each of you. Then we're going to go to a 10-minute open forum cross-examination. And then we're going to go to 1 minute closings. Then I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock for you guys to have questions coming from the audience while they're voting. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next debate. So on the affirmative, we have Kay. On the negative, we have McGroofus. Everybody knows who both of y'all are if you've ever been here before. And if you don't, fucking show up on a regular Friday and Saturday night. We're doing fun shit tonight, so hang out and enjoy. Kay, are you ready, sir? 1 minute on the clock. I will start it up whenever you start to talk. Please tell us why you believe the definition of a the definition of a planet should be changed to include Pluto.
Sorry, I was just fixing
Positioning. Yeah, I got
the
you.
thing. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, real quick before you start, I will let both of y'all know because you weren't in here. I am being a little bit stricter on the times than I usually am. I'll give you a 10-second warning on the opens and closes, and I will give you a 1 minute warning as well as a 10-second warning on the cross time. Okay, so go ahead and start it up.
Okay. The current definition from the IAU is that a planet is a celestial body that is in orbit around the sun, has sufficient mass for its self-gravity to overcome rigid body forces so that it assumes a hydrostatic equilibrium nearly round shape and has cleared its neighborhood around its orbit. This is a bit problematic. In orbit around the sun excludes exoplanets that orbit other stars, planets that orbit black holes, and planets that have been flung out of their orbit and orbit nothing, or planets that orbit each other, or planets that may orbit any other celestial objects we don't know about. Hydrostatic equilibrium. Different materials have different hydrostatic equilibriums. So something that is small and Saturn's moon, Enceladus would be a planet if it was in a different orbit path, but since it's not, it doesn't count. And then a larger rocky object that is 3 times the mass of Enceladus, like Vesta, would not be considered a planet because it's not round enough because of its different material.
That's time.
Then there's the... Okay.
All right. So I forgot to give you the 10 seconds. I got distracted. My bad. So 1 minute's on the clock now for you, Groofus. Please tell us why you do not believe that the definition of a planet should be changed to include Pluto.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, and whatever other gravitational anomalies are in the audience today, we're here to debate whether one sad little ice ball deserves a participation trophy, and I don't think so. I think this is the worst idea since New Coke, and I'm going to burn it down with pure vibes. Pluto didn't get demoted. Pluto quit. You don't fire someone who already wrote, "I never wanted this job anyways," on their LinkedIn back in 2006. It's cold. It's distant. It doesn't talk to other planets, and it surrounds itself with a little cloud of debris, like a mosh pit. This is not a dwarf planet. I think it's an emo planet. It's a hot topic.
Is that it?
That's my opening.
Okay,
Yeah,
no,
my
that's
openings.
fine. Nope, no worries. 10 minutes going on the clock for you gentlemen. Remember, audience, go ahead and you guys are going to be voting whenever this is all over. The decision is all in your hands. And if there's any questions, remember you guys get to ask them during the voting point. 10 minutes on the clock. Go ahead, gentlemen.
So, Groofus, you seem to.
No, I just want to
Go
ask you one question first. There's a response to one argument I really need you to hear. So I think that Pluto, the reinstatement of Pluto to a planetary status, is a conspiracy by Big Kuiper to sell more telescopes. So how do you respond to that?
It would keep the economy booming. Let's get jobs in this recession, baby. Anyway, you made a little bit of a reference here to the clearing its neighborhood. You're saying something about, it can't even clear some cloud dust in space. So do you know what cleared the neighborhood means?
I vaguely means like you don't have a bunch of other, to put in layman's speak as much as I can, you don't have a bunch of other large celestial bodies.
Oh, that's
within your
great
area.
because because that's more than the IAU themselves gave us. They didn't give us any guidelines or directions. Planets tend to trap objects 60 degrees in front and behind them in their L4 and L5 Lagrange points, meaning that at all constant times, all planets in our solar system at the moment have debris both in front
Sure.
and behind them consistently. Not cleared, but consistently there, following them in their orbit.
All right, so the IAU's actual resolution defines planet relative to the sun specifically, so it doesn't technically classify exoplanets at all, right? It's actually, I would say, just more of a known limitation. You're just, I
Rufus?
think you're pointing at the wrong hole.
Are you,
If you
why are
could
you
put
talking about
roughly a
exoplanets?
fist's distance between your
You
mouth and the
talked about
microphone,
exoplanets.
Rufus.
Well, no. I just said that clear.
Yes.
Oh.
Pull your mic
wait,
away from your
Radishford?
microphone just about a fist's distance. Perfect, right there. Go on.
Is this better? Okay.
Much.
Sorry.
What I just said is that in the cleared its neighborhood, that I mentioned
Right,
two
in your
things. The
opening, you talked
IAU,
about exoplanets.
yeah, but it feels like you're moving away from the point that at the L4 and L5 Lagrange points, every planet in our solar system has not cleared the orbit per se, because there is asteroids and other space debris that chills at those points at any consistent point in its orbit.
Okay, so what I meant when I said like clearing its area, I meant like its immediate area, so it's not, so there's only like a moon there. There's not like a bunch of asteroids floating around or a bunch of debris scattering around Pluto.
I mean,
I was
there
being more
really
generic
isn't-
there rather than its whole orbit.
Is there like a difference, a distance you mean? Because like if we took like a planet like Mars and we dropped it into like the Oort cloud, it technically wouldn't clear its orbit, but no objects would be able to gravitationally interact with it. Therefore, there would be no real disturbance.
I'm just trying to give trying to just do a somewhat of a layman's definition. I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm not gonna be able to have no holes in my argument at all. I'm not an
feel like
astronomer.
I feel like we would, need to be a little bit more precise about definitions here. I don't think you have
I mean,
to
if
be
the
exactly an
IAU I mean,
Yeah.
if the IAU can't give a full definition like that, then can we really?
yes.
Because I mean, like I said earlier, it's this little definition of a planet is relative to the sun. It doesn't classify exoplanet at all.
Yes, that's
it's
a
just lone
problem.
limitation. I agree, but that doesn't mean you can then say.
So we should change it.
Okay, so maybe you've demonstrated that you can change, but you also have to include Pluto. I agree that the
Yes.
definition should change, but that doesn't mean that you should actually be including Pluto.
Okay, so in order to basically clear up the problems that are with the other definitions, Pluto would be added as like default. It would be reinstated because
Would it? Even
we're-
though it crosses orbit of Neptune? Or is it? Yeah, Neptune.
yes, because if you use the scientific standard of Soder's mu, which is like what most astronomers use, while technically yes, Pluto has one of the lowest amount of planetary discriminants, it actually only passes through Neptune's orbit once, while every 3 rotations of Neptune, meaning that both orbits are considered cleared and stable. So by our own astrological standards, it's a stable and clear orbit because they're not orbiting at the same time in the same path.
So that's. To be completely honest, I don't have a good response to that.
Let me just so this is what I think needs to change with the definition. I think that when we're talking
Sure.
about planets, we need to explain what we're talking about and what we're trying to communicate when we say planet. Something that is vague can't really be like truly falsified, and it goes into this fuzzy territory of up to interpretation where you can violate the rules. And as we like expand and explore the solar system more, like we run into fringe cases like in the Kuiper belt where whether it's a planet or not becomes a little bit more vague. So in order to have like clear terminology, we need to address the problems. The problems, as I said, is in orbit around our sun. Well, that gets rid of rogue planets, planets, and exoplanets. So that needs to
What's
be
a planet?
addressed. A planet that, or celestial body that orbits a black hole.
Oh, okay. I
Hydros-
thought you were just this.
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to give you shit. Okay.
And
Okay, I see your point. I guess this is maybe why I think we should go even further and make the moon a planet too. Just
I
to
actually
see how
agree
bad
with you.
everyone gets.
I agree with you, actually. I think some moons should be able to be a planet,
No,
and the reason
not
why.
any moon, our moon.
Yes,
Luna,
I think our moon, the Luna, would qualify under my definition that I will propose later as a planet. And my reasoning being, just like first from logic, is that there's a system called 2MASS J1119-1137AB. I know, creative name, and it contains 2 stars, roughly, sorry, that's the wrong one. Sorry, I'm talking about the Gamma Cephei stars. Sorry. In the Gamma Cephei system, there's 2 stars, Gamma Cephei A and Gamma Cephei B, and one is 3 times the mass of the other, and they orbit each other. We do not call one like a starlet or a mini star or a dwarf star. They're both labeled stars, so we should hold the same characteristics for a planet. If a planet is changed from a orbit centric definition like it is right now to a physical definition like I'm going to propose, that means it would be a planet whether it's in orbit around something else or not. So I actually agree with you.
Wait, so
Because
how do you differentiate a moon from a planet then?
yeah, so that would be by characteristics. I can give you like my current working definition. So the definition I
Sure.
would propose out there is a planet is a substellar celestial body that A, possesses sufficient self-gravity to overcome rigid body forces and assume gravitational rounded spheroid shape. B, sits below the mass threshold for sustained nuclear fission. C, exhibits at least 2 of the following traits: a differentiated interior, historical persistent geological activity, or a historical persistent atmosphere. Now, by doing this,
Wait,
we
does the moon
would
have
be
a persistent atmosphere?
no.
So you said that the moon should be I specifically agreed that Luna should be a planet. Now you're contradicting
So
yourself.
again, back to the definition. I said at least
you're
two of
backpedaling.
the following. At least two of the following traits: a differentiated interior, which it does, and historical persistent geological activity, which it does. That is two of the three that which the moon does have. And sorry, our moon does have an atmosphere as well. I misspoke there. Our moon does also have an atmosphere. And by the persistent geological activity, it has something called moonquakes.
45 seconds left.
All right, so should Phoebe and Phobos be a moon or a planet then? Just make everyone just piss everyone off at that point.
I'm trying to think. Do you know if they have the criteria that if they meet the criteria, then yes. I know right now there's 32 celestial objects that meet the criteria that I have given for a planet.
So so now all you're saying is you want
Last
to
10
make
seconds.
children suffer in school because at this point you're making them memorize in science class every single one of them. So
They
now
don't
you're
have
just
to
making children
memorize
suffer.
it. We could have categories. We could have major planet, minor planet, exoplanet, and other
So how do you
categories. And you could be like,
differentiate them then?
yeah, so you could do it by size, you could do it by location, you could do it by the clearing the orbit, but this would change categories. Like right now, rogue planet, exoplanet, and dwarf planet aren't considered planets despite the name. They're not subcategories, they're brand new categories.
Time-
Under my proposal, you
is
would
out.
make them subcategories of a planet.
All right. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and give you 1 minute uninterrupted to tell us that proposition in your closing arguments. Kay, I'll start the clock when you start to talk.
Okay. So again, the definition I propose is a planet is a substellar celestial body. This means that it's not a star, nor can it become a star. That A, possesses sufficient self-gravity to overcome rigid body forces and assume a gravitational rounded spheroid shape. That means that it's big enough to be round, all right? B, sits below the mass threshold for sustained nuclear fission. This means that it can't become a failed star like a brown dwarf. C, exhibits at least two of the following traits: a differentiated interior, which means that there's internal like geological activity, like a mantle and different weighted elements sitting at different layers. Historical persistent geological activity. This could be like moving crush. This could be volcanoes. This could be like rivers and such like that. And a historical persistent and or a historical persistent atmosphere, which is like the little dome that protects us. This basically makes
10
it
seconds.
so not every moon becomes a planet. There's 970 moons. Only 19 of them would be qualified as planets. And this means that despite location, no matter where you are in the universe, we can define it.
There you go. I love the frantic speed up there at the end. 1 minute's on the clock now for you, Groofus. Your closing argument, sir.
All right, so this nerd thinks that the chat petition should be changed. Some things deserve to be legendary because they lost. Just like what's that one movie? Rocky. Pluto's not a planet. Pluto's a brand. And honestly, the brand's working better than the original ever did. Let it stay. Let the ultimate goths of this kid of the solar system. It's too cool for the main name. It's forever misunderstood. It's all black, 3.7 million miles away where no one can see it cry. And you still think it deserves the title back? That's exactly what Big Kuiper wants you to think.
All right. Sounds like that was the end there. All right, cool stuff. Great debate, gentlemen, and we'll get to that in a second. 5 minutes is on the clock for you guys. Get your votes locked in. If y'all have any questions, throw them in there. We'll go through them now. But yeah, I've got to say, one of those was funny and one of those was informative. Y'all both prepped in very different ways for this. So that said, yeah, poor Pluto. I think Pluto was the one who suffered for all of that. That's
No,
okay.
think of the children. Think of like I said at the end, think of the children.
All right, let me go ahead and drop this over here in this chat as well.
Oh.
That was interesting. That's funny. He's showing video clips.
And now we just see my eyebrows.
Like he fooled us into thinking that he was. Yeah, now we're just getting your eyebrows.
Hey, you still here, bro?
Yeah. I don't know why it's showing just your eyebrows now. Oops.
Because you didn't go
You
back to
turned
your
off-
regular what you call
Yeah,
it.
and you turn your you turn your
Oh,
picture
I have
back
to
on.
switch. I have to switch it back to the picture. Yeah. Boomer moment.
That's all right. We all have them. There you go. All right. So, yeah, like I said, if you guys can see that link, go ahead and give that link a click. And we will get this decided. So yeah, stage one, the definition needs to change. I'm not sure that I heard you finish up stage two, but I thought it was funny to hear Groofus acknowledge that you had won stage one. I do have to say that I thought it was hysterical whenever you call Pluto an emo planet. I do have to ask, and this is just for my own, so I know.
Yeah.
Kay, you referred to them as astrology, or astrological. You meant astronomical, right? Is there a difference?
Oh, I should have
Astrological.
said something.
Astrological is like star charts and like where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it.
If I said that, that was a mistake.
That's what I thought. I just
should
wanted to
have
make sure
done
because
that would have been funny.
yeah, well, I wasn't sure. I had me questioning myself. So so good on you for that. So anyways, yeah, okay. So everybody get those locked in. I'm gonna talk about the two of y'all. Rufus, just like I said to Energy Man, you have definitely gotten so much better. And like I said, your openings and closings are your best. I just wish that you would read through them like 10 times before you actually cold read them,
Yeah.
because sometimes it sounds like you're cold reading. And if you had them more memorized, like not even completely memorized, but to where you just it's more confident, like when you're reading it, you can tell
Yeah.
that you've read it before. That would really help you so much, man. And Kay,
I
mean,
also want to say I spent most of my prep time for my second debate.
yeah, well, and to be honest, I know that you did take this one because Kay really wanted to fucking go off on this, and he sure did. He definitely he definitely came prepared. So that said, we will definitely we Kay, you're again, you're one of the goats. You're absolutely amazing at this, and I'm glad every time that you actually step into the ring. But that's also why you're one of the judges, and why you're one of the moderators, and why you're one of the people at the heart of it all. So. And for what it's worth, Kay, we're still going to be going ghost hunting IRL next month, if you're still available, middle of next month.
Ooh, baby.
Yep.
Ooh,
So
baby.
we're so one of my nephews who's going with us has done a whole bunch of research and knows the parts that we can get into and where we can't get into, and so on and so forth. And apparently, the place where they did like all of the hard labor stuff is accessible still. So that's where we're going to be doing our fun. So yes, ghost
Radish,
hunting. That's
are
right,
you
Biscuit.
gonna
Hmm?
Are you gonna drag Gorp into it?
Yeah, Gorps and Kay are both supposed to be there if they can make it still. So here's hoping. Although I haven't heard from Gorps in a hot minute, I'm hoping he's doing all right. So all right, everybody, 10 seconds left. Last time, get that vote locked in. Boom. And once again, I better look down and see 33 fucking votes, or I'm gonna be mad at y'all. I will be very disappointed.
Mad at you.
All right, and let's go ahead and get in there. Oh, I didn't vote myself yet, did I? Tonight, I don't usually vote, but for tonight, I'm gonna actually vote. So, since they're fun debates, although that is another question that a lot of people were asking: should we make it so that? Yep. Oh shit! Make sure you vote again if you haven't already,
How many votes?
because if you were voting on a lot more came in since the first debate. So I think people were still, because Kay had pinned the vote, and I think people were still voting for the first debate, perhaps. So make sure that you're clicking that bottom one. And with that said, I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes because, yeah, I'm betting people fucked that up. But that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and lock my vote in, and let's go ahead and get there to the results. Show results, everybody. Okay. It's closer than I actually thought. I thought this was going to be like the first one, to be honest with. By the way, if y'all weren't listening, Energy got smashed 9-1. So this one is 12 votes to 6 votes, total 18 votes. I'll accept that. And that is 2/3 majority for K. Good job,
Yeah,
K,
fair enough.
everybody. Yay. Oh, my applause are working now. Sweet. They just didn't want to applaud for Ancom hurting him like that earlier. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. 6-4, or no, that's 7-3. 7-3 for K. Apparently, the people have spoken and they want their planet back. We need to go back to a table of 9. But I'll tell you guys, like I told the last one, this I think had a whole lot more meat on the bone, and I'm going to have this debate again. I think we might start doing more nerdy like science nights, have like a whole theme of science some nights, so that so that we can get more into the details of stuff like this, because clearly Kay had a lot more fucking points to make, and clearly Groupus had a whole lot more jokes to make. So anyways, thank you both, gentlemen. I appreciate y'all. I will see you guys next time. I think we're actually keeping this shit on schedule. I'm super excited about this. Have a great night. Toot toot. All right. So let's see. Next up, what do we have? Oh, okay. So this one is kind of a long one. Let's see. We have got, and I'm wearing my shirt specifically for this one. We have got, where's the goddamn prompt? Prompt right there. All right. So this person claims that the Pirates of the Caribbean is a better trilogy of movies than any Star Wars trilogy. Get that up. Right about there. That looks centered enough, right? Yeah, close enough. I don't care. Who that? Who there? Oh. Who is that? Oh, that's Vigilante. How did Vigilante already get in here? And Zephyr. Zephyr's already in here too? All right. So, both of you gentlemen, if you would be so kind, go ahead and turn on some sort of a camera. And Zephyr, if you would put, or I can just do it for you, buddy. How about that? I will put you where I need you. You are on the affirmative on this one, right?
Yes, I am.
There you go. And again, it doesn't have to be your actual face. Any sort of cam will work. What do you call it? What's that thing called? Okay, we can actually see your lovely face tonight.
My lighting's all off.
Very cool.
I don't know how that'll work.
Yeah, no, you look fine. You look great. You're something to look at. So let me finish getting the names changed real quick. As everybody can see, our, what is this, third debate of the night? We're already on number 3. Our third debate of the night is going to be between Zephyr on the left here is going to be on the affirmative. Control copy. Control paste. And on the negative is going to be Vigilante TV. Control copy. And control paste. So as I have explained to everybody else, we're going to be doing this very quick. Oh, it got much brighter, much brighter. See even better now. So we're going to be going through this very quickly. I'm going to be stricter on the times than I usually am. I'm going to try to give you guys a 10-second warning at the end of your opens, a 30-second and a 10-second warning at the end of the cross-examination. It is going to be just 1 minute open from each of y'all, 10 minutes across, 1 minute closings, and then 5 minutes while we kind of bullshit while people are voting. The prompt, Pirates of the Caribbean is a better trilogy of movies than any Star Wars trilogy. Zephyr, this is going to be yours to start. 1 minute's on the clock, sir. We'll start the clock when you start to talk.
Cool. All right. Stressing the debate prompt is that Pirates of the Caribbean is a better trilogy of movies than any Star Wars trilogy. So we will primarily be focusing on the quality of the movies themselves. That is, writing, technical direction of the films, things like that. I acknowledge that Star Wars has obviously had a much larger cultural significance or historical significance than Pirates of the Caribbean, but when it comes to the technical direction of the films and the writing of the films, I believe that Pirates has Star Wars beat in every single metric, including better plot, better music, better cinematography, better set design, makeup, costume design, better dialogue, and obviously better VFX. Pirates of the Caribbean has grounded and flawed characters. They don't have an unfair advantage over their enemies, at least none that are inconceivably over the top. The characters have to use their wits and learn how to navigate a world full of villainy and scum to achieve their goals. Star Wars, however, has pretty insipid and one-dimensional characters. Straightforward, black and evil, evil and good through line, and throws flashing lights and visual interest at you to distract from the unoriginality and simplicity of the plot.
All right. 1 minute's on the clock now for you, Vigi. Go ahead and start it up when you're ready.
All right. This is a pretty easy decision on which is better. The original trilogy of Star Wars, or the first three movies of Pirates. Pirates is simply the misadventures of a narcissist whose friends clean up his messes. It lacks direction, and it lacks a cohesive story, and the main villains, the East Indian Trade Company, even written very well. The entire reason the East India Trade Company becomes a big of a threat as it does is because Jack fucks up. The original trilogy of Star Wars has a cohesive world building, builds how big of a threat the main villains are from the Empire, from the opening scene of the first movie. While Star Wars features a similar self-interested narcissist in Han Solo in the main trio, he isn't the main character. Unlike Jack, he actually goes through a very clear character growth of him learning to be a good person, while he helped the main character, a nobody boy from a backwater planet, to make an impact in the galaxy and eventually overthrow the Empire.
That's time.
He is a very key figure in succeeding.
All right. It's really hard to do this with 1 minute, isn't it? I know. Everybody has struggled with the time, but that's okay. That's why it's fun. All right. 10 minutes is on the clock, y'all. Just go ahead and get after it.
Can you start off by telling me how does Jack make the East India Company a bigger threat?
Specifically in the fight scene in the second movie, when they're fighting over Davy Jones's heart, instead of keeping hold of it, he tries to stash it in the jar of dirt and leaves a jar of dirt unattended, which allows the one former military person to be able to grab it and then take it to the East India Trading Company.
So doesn't he not leave the jar of dirt because the little kraken is after him?
No, he doesn't.
In that moment.
What is currently after him in that moment isn't the kraken. They're currently in the middle of a fight scene on the sandbar with a bunch of Davy Jones henchmen. He very easily, because you can hold the type of sword the pirates use with one hand.
Puts the heart in the jar of dirt to hide the heart. And then takes the heart with him to the ship, and then the ship gets attacked by the kraken.
No, he doesn't take the heart to the ship.
He does.
You didn't rewatch
He does take the heart. Do you remember the scene where he's like, "I've got a jar of dirt. I got a jar of dirt." That's on the ship.
He thinks he took the heart. The heart was stolen while it was on the sandbar. You didn't rewatch the movie before doing this debate.
I rewatched the movie, but it does not. It is not shown that Jack Sparrow does not leave the heart unattended.
He very clearly shown that he leaves the heart unattended, and it is very clearly shown that the former British military guy, takes the heart during that fight. Jack doesn't lose the heart.
He takes the heart during that fight, but my argumentation is that he does not leave the jar unattended. So that's basically one thing.
He leaves the jar unattended in the dinghy, which allows the former British military guy to take the heart. That is the entire reason why they lost the heart in the first place.
Well, if you call like 2 seconds of looking away unattended, that works.
It's not 2 seconds, it's like 5 minutes.
It's 2 seconds. So misadventures of a narcissist. What do you classify as misadventures? And I guess I will have to answer some. I have some questions about Star Wars as well after you answer this one.
Yeah. So misadventures. I mean, every single thing that ends up being the plot of any of the three movies is caused by the fact that Jack fucked up in one way or another. The whole plot to get the Black Pearl
Vinny,
back
who's the
was
main
because
character of Pirates of the Caribbean?
Jack Sparrow.
He's not the main character of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes, he is. He is very clearly the main
Nope.
character.
So here's the thing. Here's what I like about Pirates of the Caribbean, right? That it's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Jack Sparrow is, I won't call him a bumbling idiot. Obviously, he's putting on that act to get away with it. But the main character of Pirates of the Caribbean is actually Elizabeth Swann. She's the one who starts out in a British royal family, or the governor's daughter. She grows up in the lap of luxury and yet chooses to go out seeking an adventure. And by the third movie, ending up being the pirate king and leading all the pirates into battle against the East India Company.
Bro, that's
So
like saying
that
the main
is-
character. That's like saying the main character of the original trilogy is Princess Leia because it starts out with Princess Leia on the
Nope.
ship under attack by Darth Vader.
The main
That's
character is the
not-
one who
not
affects the
even
plot
re-
with the situation that they're given. Princess Leia is in a situation, but she does not affect the plot. Jack Sparrow caused a situation, but the plot itself, like the situation is caused before the movies. And then in the actual movies, the plot is affected more by Elizabeth Swann.
Plot is very clearly affected more by Jack because if Jack didn't cause
There are
the
beats in the
issues-
plot that are affected by
No.
Jack Sparrow for sure.
No,
There are certain beats.
you would be
but-
so it does the trio thing a little bit more than Star Wars does.
Sure.
More so on the fact of honestly,
All
I
three
would say Jack
characters,
is
they
more,
have their individual arcs. I
No.
would say even the
Oh,
side
well,
characters in
the
Pirates of the
East India-
Caribbean have better individual arcs than like Princess
while
Leia,
the
who's
East
supposed
Indian
to be one of the
Trading
main three.
Company is while the East India Trading Company is portrayed as the main villain of the movies, it would actually be more accurate to say that Jack is the main villain.
No,
of the movies.
capitalism is the main villain of the movies, but yeah, East India
No,
Trading Company is like
Jack is very clearly the main villain of the movies. The reason why Jack is the main villain of the movies is because every action that causes Will and Elizabeth to have to step up and be the heroes of the movies is caused by Jack. Including
but Jack then, sure. I mean, I wouldn't say that Jack is blame free, but then
that's why I
he
call
goes
it the
out of his way
misadventures of a
to be-
narcissist.
Well, misadventures would imply that he does not achieve his goal. He does achieve his goal. He does end up becoming good. I have some questions for Star Wars since
He
we've talked
really
about pirates and we've
doesn't.
got like 4 minutes left.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Sure. Okay. What was Obi-Wan Kenobi's plan on Tatooine?
To watch over Luke and raise him till he is
He does
of
not
age
raise
to
him.
become a Jedi.
Uh,
Not raise him, but watch him be raised. An indirect.
Watch him be raised while the entire galaxy is crumbling around them to fascism?
Yeah, I mean,
He does not actually start
he-
training Luke until his aunt and uncle die.
That's literally because his aunt and uncle wouldn't let him. That's shown very clearly in the movie.
So, what is the actual plan of Ben Kenobi? Was Luke ever supposed to be a Jedi? Was Ben actually ever supposed to train him? Because up until his aunt and uncle died, there's no point at which Ben Kenobi tries to train Luke or teach him about the Jedi or anything like that.
I mean, his whole purpose of taking him there was to protect him from the Empire. It wasn't to train him.
Okay, so protect Luke for what? If the entire galaxy is lost, what is the point of protecting him?
To keep Darth Vader's son out of the hands of his father
At the
and
cost
the Emperor.
of trillions of lives in the galaxy? Or
I mean, at the point where Obi-Wan took Luke to Tatooine, they really didn't have a hope, and the rebellion. Like, we have additional context
So,
from like the movie.
and
From
it sounds like there
movies and-
isn't much of a plan for Kenobi up until C-3PO and R2-D2 happen to just walk into Luke's house and play Leia's message. But up until then,
Yeah,
it doesn't seem
because
like there is no
his-
plan.
the purpose for Obi-Wan to take him there wasn't to train him to eventually overthrow the
But
Empire.
Are we
It was
accepting
to
that
protect him from his father.
Kenobi? So are we accepting that Kenobi basically was like, well, the galaxy's already lost. I just get to save Luke, hopefully.
Yeah, that's kind of what the whole plan with Luke and Leia was.
Okay, I guess if you're conceding that, fair enough. All right. I have a note written down here about the Death Star, and again, there's time's running out, so might not be able to get it out of it. Would you accept that the Death Star is such a powerful weapon that the only way to defeat it, canonically speaking, is to have the chief engineer of the Death Star be a traitor to the Empire, and one of the rebels to be a Jedi or at least Force sensitive?
The Force sensitive aspect, no, but the chief architect being a traitor definitely made it a lot easier. There are likely other ways that they could have done it, more so through infiltration, but it would have been a suicide mission. In the way of meaning that you could get there, plant enough explosives to blow it up, but there was no way in hell that you were getting out.
Okay, well, so the reason I ask you is because I want to point out some
1
of
minute
these
left.
issues with the plot of Star Wars where things kind of conveniently fall into place, where C-3PO and R2-D2 kind of conveniently happen to walk into Luke and conveniently play Leia's message. Ben Kenobi, who basically is seen as an old hermit in Tatooine that nobody wants to talk to, a little bit mad, is basically turns out to be a Jedi, and who has never trained Luke, just happens to be a Jedi who can train him. This is because I'm talking only the original trilogy. We don't have the backstory of Obi-Wan Kenobi as of yet. And then the Death Star, just the chief engineer just happens to be a traitor who just happens to leave one small weakness in the Death Star, where one of the characters happens to be Force sensitive right at the right moment, who is able to shoot and turns off his targeting system. Whereas in Pirates of the Caribbean, every single action is affected by the individual characters. Every single character make things
10
happen.
seconds left.
Besides Han Solo and Darth Vader, no character in Star Wars goes through like a deep emotional change. Luke becomes like a bit more mature, sure, but like his true nature kind of stays the same. Pirates of the Caribbean,
right.
even the side characters go through a lot of like character internal development.
And that
overall.
is time. All right, gentlemen. So 1 minute's on the clock now for you, Zephyr. This is your uninterrupted closing. Go ahead and tell us one more time why Pirates of the Caribbean is a better trilogy of movies than Star Wars.
For sure. So obviously we did not get to get into, because of the limited time, the better costume, makeup design, things like that. Obviously, Davy Jones, Davy Jones is an effect that even 20 years later is seen as a masterpiece. Obviously, I understand the attraction towards practical effects that Star Wars took, but Davy Jones is the sort of standard bearer for CGI. Every single CGI effect since Davy Jones came out has been trying to match that. Some of them succeed, most of them, vast majority of them fail. The Star Wars does not, or sorry, Pirates of the Caribbean does not have like a super overpowered weapon like the Death Star, where, as Vijay has conceded, that the only way to defeat such a weapon would be to retrospectively make the chief engineer of the weapon a traitor to the cause. Which again, for some reason, Star Wars, the Empire never made sure to check that. Just happened to be the case. And also then I can go into Star Wars, like moving towards blatant marketing with the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi, but that's just too much of a cheap shot.
All right. And on that cheap shot, Vigi, 1 minute's on the clock for your closing, sir. Go ahead and start it up when you're ready.
Yeah, so he wants to say that with the Pirates, that it doesn't have a glaring, overpowered weapon. While Davy Jones and the Flying Dutchman are literally that glaring, overpowered weapon, right? So the only way that you can defeat Davy Jones and the Flying Dutchman is by taking out the captain of the Flying Dutchman and instituting a captain that you control in the Flying Dutchman. Oh, yeah, by the way, that captain that is already there has a glaring weakness in the fact that his heart is removed from his body, and they can capture the heart, and that's exactly what they do, and that's how they kill the Flying Dutchman, and that's the only reason why they beat the East India Trading Company is because of the fact that they have the Black Pearl and the Flying Dutchman. Without that, they would have never won. The whole plot of the Pirates of the Caribbean is very clearly inspired by Star Wars because of the whole trio thing, the whole scumbag character fucking influence the way that things go. Star Wars does it way better, though.
All right, there you go. Star Wars does it way better, though. Closing thoughts. All right, everybody. So I'm going to drop the link here for you guys to vote. You guys know how this works. You got about 5 minutes here. I'm going to put that on the clock, and you by the time that clock runs out, we'll see who won. But I will tell you that I already know who lost, and that was Star Wars and the Pirates of the Caribbean. No, I'm kidding. So that was actually way better than I expected it to be. I thought this was going to be a slam dunk. I even wore my Star Wars shirt in solidarity here, and I'm not sure where this is going to go. I'm not even sure how I'm going to fucking vote. So, as I said before, if you guys do have any questions, anything that you think got left on the table, or if you guys just want to make fun of them, you're welcome to do that as well. We don't have super chats like they do over there on YouTube, but just throw a couple bucks in the tip jar, and they will definitely hear you guys talk. So, Vigi, dude, yeah. First of all, everybody, Vigilante TV here is on Word War Debate, and I'm pretty confident that he is going to be able to go far. And there is a very real possibility that the final round could end up being Horseradish versus Vigilante. By the way, that's one of the reasons why I did not schedule you for a debate against the Horseradish tomorrow night, is because we're going to save that for Word War Debate. But on the other end of that is Zephyr, who said that he has never really debated like this before. Is that correct, Zephyr? You said this is kind of you sticking your toe in the water?
Yeah, I do more sort of like I prefer conversational debates than like competitive debates. Not to say that it's only like blood sports or overly competitive, but it is a competitive setting.
Sure.
I've been on 1 or 2 week debates, but that's kind of been because the person who was supposed to debate dropped out. So, but yeah,
Gotcha.
besides that, I don't regularly debate.
I see. Lethe says you like to crash out, not debate. Got it. Okay. So kind of like what's that guy, Kung Fu Joe? No, anyway. Speaking of which, Kung Fu Joe also in Word War Debate. So keep watching for that. I'm not sure which side. I think he's on my path, isn't he? I think he's on my side of the bracket. So
No,
he's on yours.
I'm pretty sure he's on mine.
Good. Best of luck with that. But yeah, but yeah, so it's a bracket debate. The Word War Debate thing is, and it's currently ongoing. Those are going to be dropping next month, I believe, like the first week of July. So if you guys are out there, if you stick around in the Discord channel, speaking of which, we'll go ahead and plug that real quick. You guys will get plenty of updates, and we'll let you guys know when any of us is debating and when you guys can go to watch it. The first round is pre-recorded. I didn't get to actually do my first round because my opponent canceled, and so I just got a pass for the first round. But Vigis is going to come out. They do all the editing and stuff, and then you guys are going to have like 2 days to vote, I think. But after round 1, all of them are going to be recorded live and vote live and all that jazz. So,
Do you know if any other people dropped out besides your own debate?
to the best of my knowledge, it's the only one, as far as I can tell.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
And I think that everybody else's is pretty much recorded. So we had to reschedule. So full disclosure, my opponent had a baby. And so like, exactly.
Congratulations to her.
Exactly. And just like a week before the first time it was scheduled, and then we scheduled it like 2 weeks later to give her some time to rest, and her baby was sick. So it's like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? But they couldn't keep pushing it further because the deadline to actually get them live is in July. So that's why I get a freebie.
So if there's like one reason, I guess, to miss a debate,
Yeah.
like the birth of a child or
Exactly.
or maybe the death of a loved one probably would be the two.
Now the irony is that the debate prompt was women should be prohibited from holding political office. And so I'm actually glad, because I knew she would have used that anecdotal experience in her debates. I was already prepared for it, but yeah. Anyways, getting completely off topic here. The point I was trying to make, Zephyr, is that you're not generally a debater, and you were up against generally a debater. I think Vigilante and Groofus are the two who have debated most in the DMZ. I should go back and see who has actually
Goddamn, Vigi,
participated
get a
the
life.
most. No, this is,
I'm joking.
yeah, I was about to say, this is his life.
I work on the weekend.
Yeah.
I have a Monday through Friday 9 to 5. I come
Yep.
home on the weekends and just do this shit.
This is fun for me.
I love some of the arguments that you give, so
Yep.
I enjoy watching you. So definitely
So
look
do
for this.
I. Apparently, Zephyr's your fan base, because you actually had some fan base. No North Cal Mike, Rabid Wombat, folks showed up just to hear you cook, brother. So hopefully the votes are going to reflect that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Uh,
You don't have to vote for me. Please vote for the arguments.
All right, there you go. Yeah, on those thoughts, 7 seconds left. Let's go ahead and get over there and see how you guys voted. I'm going to drop this link one more time. Boom. Get the last few locked in, and I'm going to go ahead and see how many people have voted. Oh, I haven't voted yet myself. Okay. All right, we need a couple more votes in here, damn it. I don't know how to. Yeah, fuck it. That's the way we're going. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Fuck you. I hate counting. Let's go. 10-6. So we had 10-7. Got a last minute one in there, but it still doesn't change things. 6-4 in favor of Zephyr. All right,
Thank
Zephyr.
you.
It looks like, and yeah, I hate it. I hate it. But you made some good arguments, buddy. You did.
We can continue this after.
I was about to say we will get into a fist fight about this later, I think. But yeah, I missed the whole Dickens-esque aspect of the Star Wars series, and the fact that isn't that convenient? So, anyways, all right, gentlemen, thank you both. Appreciate y'all. Great job, and I'm going to yeet you out of the room now for our next debaters. All right, next debate. This one could be a blast. I'm actually super stoked for this one. 2 more people, both of them relatively new, but the prompt is going to be backwards in time travel will never be possible. And the 2 debaters on this one are going to be on the affirmative. We have got, where is it? Let's move that up there. Let's move that. Yeah, that's cool. On the affirmative, we have Loodle Miss, and on the negative, we have Mr. If you're feeling adventurous, Zach. So let's go ahead and yank them both up here now. I am pretty sure that both of them know how all of this works. Hopefully they see what has happened here and they know that they are in the room with me. So if you both gentlemen would cam up for us. Oh, we lost one of them. How did that happen? Let's try that again. I don't know how that happened, but somehow you got yoinked back down there. Loodle, if both of y'all would please turn on your cameras for me real quick so we can see those lovely faces. Or if not, you can give me a virtua cam of a picture or whatever whatever is suitable for y'all. That is one. And
Yo, can you hear me?
we can. I can hear you, Zach, loud and clear.
Okay.
We're getting
As
your
I've told
camera.
you before, my virtual cam thing does not work on my software, so you're just gonna have to use that picture of my awesome shredded back in the gym.
Ooh,
How the hell? NAFTA? How the hell do I mute these other people I'm not even on with anymore? My God. Well, that was a nightmare, everybody. Freaking audio and video stuff craziness, and then I tried to get out of it so I could actually talk to y'all, and like Discord was the phantom window that wouldn't shut up. I had to go figure out where in my computer it hid that so I could shut the people still talking about Pluto up. Well, that was a hot mess. I didn't think that was going to be the way the prompt would go. I figured the gentleman would actually understand some science and at least some basics of Hawkins' theory or of Weinstein's geometric unity, and that goes in the 14th dimension or whatever. But the whole thing is that no matter where we're at on that time frame, we never got into that because it was a bunch of bullshit. Was even though you can have up to 14 dimensions that can be proven through the possibilities of the geometric equations and have the same reality we all perceive and exist in, right? Only one of those dimensions is linear time. And the linear time dimension, based upon the laws of causality and the laws of basic physics and the laws of geometric unity, Zeno's paradox, all those geometric laws apply to the way the universe is structured, the entirety of it. So the idea that you could create a quantum energy far enough or in such great and targeted amounts to break the hyperbolic, the hyperparabola of Zeno's paradox away from the asymptote and somehow create a crossover by flooding quantum with a bunch of charged particles and create a stable wormhole is ridiculous. Not only is it ridiculous, it's fundamentally, geometrically, and physiologically, physically impossible. The universe does not work that way. When I'm talking about quantum, I'm like, okay, yeah, Michael McQuarrie's Timeline is a great movie. The Quantum Foam, yeah, you can go back to, the 1400s, but that's like not the 1400s. It's an alternate universe, and it's not actually you. You've been dissolved in a freaking fax machine, and some of your bits have been sent off. Like, I thought that's where he was going. It's like, no, I just think it could one day maybe be possible because time's at infinity and everything's at infinity in time. And like, yeah, and math and quantum, I don't trust your equations. Everybody's over-credentialed. I'm like, that's exactly Weinstein's point, is that the entire subset of the field of physics has been wasting its time for 4 decades on string theory. And string theory has created nothing but a greater and greater level of complex equations that have no relation other than theoretic possibility based upon other theoretic equations back to the actual numbers. Hey, Springo, how you doing, buddy? So the whole point is that if we're talking about how these over-credentialed academics are making up all these math theories, that's the whole point that Weinstein's geometric unity obviates. And saying that, no, it's the same geometry we've always known. String theory has no application to anything. It's probably a freaking psyop. The fact we've been devoting our entire physics departments across the university system to discovering more and more complex, non-applicable applications of string theory that have no relevance in the real world and don't interface with quantum at all either, though quantum is completely bullshit in its application on its own side, just proves that the method we're going to do. I knew about quantum field theory. Yes, sir. Here, I can actually do this right now. Let's see here. I can do even one more thing. I'm going to drop in the general chat here. If anyone at all, even the guy just debated if he's lurking out there, whoever, wants to come on stage and chat about stuff for a second in a more one-on-one face, I'm open to that. Or come and call me a cracker or whatever y'all want to do. There's a link. You can join and put backstage. You can talk to me. You can whatever, or we can keep doing it there. Well, the thing is, the operative is kind of the control, right? Is that as long as there are people about to observe, it gets past the whole idea of like experimental or like hyperbolic reality tied with the actual experiential reality, like observable reality. So as far as I understand, and I've read all the Weinstein's papers, basically the issue is that the observer or the observers or whatever, it bundles the dynamics of physics as well as the observable universe, right, with a consistent direction that's based upon geometric principles. The problem is if you can say, well, maybe quantum could one day do a negative thing. Oh, there's Chipringo. Hey, brother.
Hey, brother. How you doing?
I'm
Can you
well,
hear
man.
me?
How are you?
Am I coming through?
Yeah, I think loud and clear. Let me try to bump your audio a little bit more if I can.
I always come in low on StreamYards for whatever reason. I don't know how to fix it.
I can lower myself. I can't lower you, but I can lower myself. There we go.
You're good. It's just the next notch goes to blown out. So
Oh yeah, it's either
I
like
try to
too
avoid
low
it.
or like crackling the speakers.
all right, I'm sorry, brother. I'm hopping in last minute,
You're fine.
and I missed your debate there.
It was
I'm
very
a
brief
little
and
bit worried about
very
people that
shitty.
are defending Weinstein. Not what he's trying to do. Okay, first off,
Well, let's
just-
just go about what happened real quick first, then we can go into
Yeah.
Weinstein.
please,
Um,
please.
Because I was hoping to have an intelligent conversation about Weinstein and Hawkins and their interface with actual like science, right? Basically, his whole argument was all these fancy university people with their mathematical equations trying to prove stuff. We don't know if it'll be proven. We don't know if that'll ever be proved. We don't know if it works or not. Plus, the same side, they said a man would never fly. The first people discovered fire. The people before that said fire couldn't exist. When they made a wheel, they said the wheel will never roll anywhere. They said man will never go flying in space, and we had done that. So anything's possible, and one day we'll figure this out to rest my case. I was like, really?
Oh yes, you were on the.
I was on the app. I'm
affirmative
saying
that
it is not possible.
right. It would require loops and
Yeah, we require the CTC, yeah, the consistent time.
geodesic loops in space time.
Yeah, the closed time curves, Warhol's cosmic streams, whatever. Yeah, that's why I led with too. I tried to find all that stuff. He's like, well, your numbers don't work, math man, but one day we'll figure it out. I'm like, how can you say the numbers don't work and have faith that one day we'll figure it out when you're admitting the existing numbers don't work? Like you're not even describing reality. Well, quantum. I'm like, what about quantum? It's everything always everywhere at once. It's the answer and the question. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
pretty wild.
There is a what is it that you're so open-minded your brain
Brains
falls
fall
out of your
out,
ears.
yeah.
I worry about that a little bit with the fringes of the field as well. One of these things that don't get me wrong. Is it possible that the entire field has gone off in a funny direction for decades? and we don't know when we're going to spiral out of that. Yeah.
I mean, I would agree that string theory is basically a psyop to like prevent any kind of United States university like research facilities to actually work on the kind of weapons that private companies are now working on. Actually, so it's a dead end, and that's a psyop from the CIA back from the 60s, 70s when it emerged. That's my thought on string theory.
Remember our friend Hanlon here. There's no reason for a psyop when you were looking for spin 2 particles and a theory pops up that has spin 2 particles from a slightly different place than gravity. So you've got people like Suskind, who at the time jumped in hardcore, and then Witten came in later on. And here's the thing. You can shit on these people, and they might be dead wrong. They might be absolutely dead wrong. But Witten in particular has advanced like quantum information theory by leaps and bounds. We're mucking about in the dark, and I will agree with the common critiques that I forget, they have a very particular name for it. It's like the swamp, some kind of landscape in string theory, of which you have all of these different particular theories that you would have to hone down. Do you know what I'm pointing to?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like everybody's got their own little niche, and they're trying to like develop more complex mathematical equations without going back to the fundamental precepts and actually getting the field anywhere. I guess is that critique, right?
Well, see, this is where I have to push back. Is that one of the things that has occurred in those intermittent decades is that the math departments and the physics departments have had a lot of inspiration and push on each other, and even if the theory or direction of the theory is completely wrong, should something come through that is, and keep in mind, when we want a new theory in physics, we don't want a theory that throws everything else out that came before it.
Well, we'd also like one that explains some aspect of observable reality, at least to some degree, that is somewhat dispositive at some point. And quantum has its elements and gets there, and the math behind quantum does. Quantum's real. Quantum has real application and benefits to it. 100% I agree. The question is, are the delimiting factors of the function of quantum in and of itself that make it especially ill-suited for any sort of use in creating these time loops. That's really my critique on quantum. Is yeah, it's great for stuff, and computing is great, and even like even all kinds of extrapolative stuff. It's really great for doing it super fast, right? But it's
in very niche cases.
Well, yeah, and see, I have a particular application that already kind of shoehorns itself into what quantum's already doing, right?
Yeah, for quantum computing especially. It's like,
yes.
Can it factor large numbers much faster? Well, yes, but it's also very unstable.
And what do you want to do with that? And that's the law of diminishing return, even with it's about ability to factor stuff. Okay, great, but what's the largest numbers we need factoring? What good does that get us, right? Like it can do a bunch of really cool stuff, hypothetically, right? But as far as the point in time, its instability really makes it a problem if you're going to use quantum as the basis to try to interact with the physical realm in any kind of tangible or stable way. And that was Hawking's critique of it back in '92.
Yes, but he also aided the theory in that way.
Okay, I'm going to take that. I don't know what that was.
I guess all I want to point to is let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. As a historical analogy here, you've got Lorentz working on what is essentially special relativity before Einstein. He just didn't quite put it together. Even we think of Maxwell as putting together the electrodynamic equations, but he gave us 20 equations, and it wasn't till Heaviside and Gibbs played with the formalism a little bit. So what I'm pointing to is, even if these tools aren't exactly what the direction is in terms of physics being a representation of reality, the amount of software that we've developed, and I don't mean computer software, I mean like scientific mathematical
Yeah, like humans, like software for existing in this world. Yeah.
for us to understand these concepts.
Mhm.
The departments are so far along that if something that truly was so much more basic and simple and natural and just filled in all the blanks, then any potential questions we would have we would be immediately prepared to knock down a bunch of different
so
directions.
I think that you're right. So I think maybe either I said it wrong or maybe you misconstrued my point. Like I agree. I don't think there should be a ban on or appropriation of any of these like pursuits, right? I think that just basically, and if there was some unified theory that answered everything, we probably figure it out. If not, there'd be pieces of it we're being put together when the Antichrist comes or whatever. But the point being is basically that the geometric unity, at least, right? It doesn't try to say that there is a solution that's we're at. It says if we look at the fundamental precepts, if we take everybody's work into account here, right? We can find there are limiting principles. There are plans that there are certain lines of thought that don't apply to certain theoretical problems. And that goes especially with the idea of even if you have like a highly multi-dimensional concept of time and this interaction and collapsing of space within the time, right? That it doesn't, the framework doesn't get us any further to solving the causality problem, because the causality problem is the deeper geometry which space-time emerges from. And so and physics itself. And so you can't, there's no quantum anything that can go back and even attempt to break that. So we can continue to spin off and do other stuff that's very helpful, right? But you can't, you can't have a man just without any mechanical instrumentation or help fly. Nobody can jump off a roof and fly. That's just not, and no amount of, like, you can mechanically adapt that. You can buy him equipment or evolve him or mind link him or whatever, right? But on the basic precepts of the way the physical world is, man cannot fly on his own, right? And so we can find a solution to get around that, but there's a bottom we all hit, and it's a limiting principle, I think, is my critique of they can spin off their own ways. It's great. They shouldn't be stopped, but like trying to undo fundamental rules of, of existence, I guess, or the universe, which is a stupid thing to say, right? There's been no work done to fix that problem, and it doesn't appear there can be any because it's kind of fundamentally disclosed upon.
I mean, I think a lot of this boils down to there's an inverse relationship between well, no, I guess not an inverse relationship, a multiplicative relationship between frequency and energy here.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to get down to Planck scales where the problem is occurring, the amount of energy we would require to perform such an experiment, at least naively, until somebody comes up with something much more interesting,
Mm-hmm.
it's outside the bounds of reality within our current context. Maybe future versions of us that, I know Dyson stars are silly, but just for the joke, if we have a Dyson star, we can do some kind of huge galactic manipulation kind of thing. Maybe that we can start probing at those answers. But otherwise, what do we use to check ourselves? That's really a lot of the problem.
Well, I think that we can do all the things that you're suggesting, and Dyson star and more theorems, and trying to figure out what's out there in space and the way that different quantum fields interact with each other, right? The way that different chimeric filaments interact with each other and how they're affected by different gravitational forces, both that are both like evident and also are being pulled on by force we don't understand, right? That's just discovery. That's Magellan. That's Columbus, right? The issue is like when we get to a point, for example, that the way that quantum would work, right? Like building a machine that could make a CTC possible demands negative energy, and quantum effects, we've learned, amplify at destructive levels near the horizons, near the collapse point. So you can't use quantum to cross that threshold. Maybe something else will come up, but quantum is not the answer, and string theory is not the answer, because we've learned through their own endeavors that the way that energy functions makes it impossible for this application. So, which is a good thing to know, and it was through their work they learned it. So I'm not discrediting the field or saying there's not more to be gained from their study. I'm just saying, like, as far as time travel to a previous time, the way the energy and quantum possible machines and negative energy manipulation works precludes this application, like, from square one. But we only recently found that out. So it's a good thing we're studying it, but I'm just saying, solve this problem, if this is a problem, right? Time travel backwards. There's nothing that seems to indicate it would be possible other than we discovered fire at one point somehow.
All right. Really, what I would think the approach here, especially how things have been in flux in the last 20-ish years, would be a little bit of epistemic humility, because so many times we've said this is correct, no, the opposite is correct. Bell's inequality is up for question, because now we're at the point where we're asking the philosophical physics questions of what do we mean by observer. So let me first throw two in your favor, and these are just anecdotal. I think they're true. I'm not sure how true they are, but I heard that there was some physics proof that trains couldn't go over some particular speed because the difference in air and Bernoulli's principle would just suck all the air out of the trains and everybody would suffocate. So trains couldn't, and of course, a few decades later, trains are going that speed and faster. And then you point out planes should not be able to fly past Mach speed because X, Y, and Z reasons. There's an infinity that shows up in the math, and we have Mach 4?
I think 5 or 6 at this point.
But yeah, I don't know what the number. It's ridiculous at this point. Like, they've far shattered that. Okay, but on the other side, we've got Dirac here, and he finds the positive and negative solution for a square root. Mm-hmm. And they should mean absolutely nothing. But then we find out that there's antiprotons and antimatter in general.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's why this field needs to keep pushing forward, right? I think, for example, the physics on the train having the air sucked out at a certain velocity, right? Like, that turned out not to be true, but we applied that technology to make a round that will suck the atmosphere out of an APC of an enemy army after it penetrates it. So we just took that principle, extended it, and made terrible death machines out of it once we understood it. So, which, I mean, again, like, just shows the advance of science you're talking about, right? I guess my question is, like...
I mean, there is negative energy.
Yeah, sure. No, I agree. The problem is, like, when you try to do something with it with quantum, right? You get to that horizon, you get in you get blue shifting so quickly, it's not applicable for this. It's not useful for this application because it collapses, right, or renders the CTC so unstable, just inherently, it couldn't be used. So the way to get to time travel, quantum, even negative energy can't work because the blue shifting that happens collapses immediately or just renders it, like, destructive. Maybe there's something we can figure out to fix that or whatever, but quantum as it stands, right, doesn't have the answer to create the this time loops or whatever, the CTCs, oh my god, I keep trying to use a military acronym there. Consistent time circles, consistent time circles.
Yeah, basically it's a geodesic in space-time that is what's the word I'm looking for? It loops back on itself.
Yeah, so and we have to either discover one or create one, and right now we're creating it because it's not really time travel intentionally at least, if we can't like, you know what I mean? Like we can find a freaking, I don't know, like a giant megalodon at the bottom of the ocean, right? Like, oh my god, we found it, but like to discover something is different from actually being able to employ it in the aims of humanity or a country or a department in a college, I guess.
Well, first I suggest we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I want to split the baby. Who knows if, in some sense, there's some technological advancement that we can't foresee right now that allows for a more limited kind of quote-unquote time travel that we would otherwise reject under the current notion of light cones.
Right.
But doesn't allow for closed loop geodesics.
I mean, right, there might be. I mean, I'm not foreclosing it, and that's the thing. My point was not to say that it's never possible. My point was to say that it's like backwards time travel is, was it? I think it was what backwards time travel is. It said not possible, not impossible. It's not possible. I would say that definitely like time travel or space travel that has the feel of time to it, like shrinking, like manipulating the space-time continuum and trying to do interesting things to get further distances quickly is definitely possible, at least theoretically. The problem is the idea of going back to a prior time physically is like it's a unicorn. Like, again, we're going to discover a unicorn. It's of that ilk, right? It's really fanciful. We can figure out. I'm not saying stop the research. I'm not saying don't keep trying. I'm not saying don't. Maybe we'll discover new technology. I'm just saying, like, if there was a new technology that was discovered that undid gravity entirely, and gravity didn't exist on Earth anymore, that would be of the sort, being like, oh, we didn't see that coming. It screwed with a fundamental observation we've had about nature, that the apple falls slower than the bowling ball, faster than the feather. And if somebody had a switch and flipped it and it changed that, well, that's a hell of a thing. But that would violate like how are we supposed to go around acting in the world if we kind of take every law, whether it's thermodynamics or theoretical or even moral, as a who knows, tomorrow it might not be there, so why don't we act as if it doesn't exist? Like, that's the whole. Like, I'm all about pushing the limits and going to the edge with science, with philosophy, and with technology and everything, seeing what we can get. But there are some things I think that just, again, the idea of communism is almost similar. The idea that we can change human nature to a point where we can all be selfless and live in a utopic society where it's only existing for the state. That's just not possible because of the way the world works and the way human beings are fundamentally flawed, selfish jackasses, and you'll never get there even through oppression. The same thing is, like, I don't think you can loop time against the way that causality functions.
I mean, I think I'm basically completely agree with that, with a small caveat. So I have to ask you, on a two-dimensional surface, can parallel lines intersect?
Nope, only on a three-dimensional. Well, yeah. Well, no, only a three-dimensional. You need hyperbolic geometry to get there. So on a cup or a bowl, they can't. Two-dimensional plane, no. That's Euclid's fourth axiom.
That's exactly what I want to point to.
What?
It's I think fifth, but I could be wrong about.
Oh, maybe
this.
fifth.
The parallel postulate, regardless.
Yes.
So, say you are walking along the equator, and you point north.
Right. All lines, even if they're completely parallel, like the parallels in latitude and longitude, all intersect at the equator and the poles. Yeah.
All right. Well, theoretically, right, the surface is only a two-dimensional, but Hausdorff fractal dimensions. Forgive. Let's just say that the Earth is a sphere. Or
look at a teacup. Just grab a coffee cup out of your cabinet.
We could make it more complex, but the surface itself is two-dimensional, and we have just noticed that parallel lines can intersect on a two-dimensional surface. So Euclid's postulate wasn't wrong per se. It was missing something. Euclid's postulate should have said, in R2, in the flat plane that is R2 with no curvature, parallel lines will not intersect. And
Right.
Gauss picked this out much later on down the road. And so the funny thing here is, we're not saying that the old stuff is, we should reject it or throw it away or anything of that sort. But there's always a possibility that a Gauss comes in and to bring it back to physics, Galileo has relativity long before Einstein does.
Right.
It's just that time is constant for all observers. So then Einstein is saying, well, Galileo's not wrong.
Right.
He's just incorrect if we're considering, or he's only correct in velocities that are very slow relative to the speed of light.
Right, but he's observed a phenomena in the set of things he's been looking at to try to make his hypotheses based upon, the same way that Euclid, in the planar geometry sense, was correct in his postulate. It was just never extended beyond the microcosm of the field he was observing.
Yeah, so here's the thing, and this always boggles my mind to try to think about. If we're looking at Einstein's space-time manifold, the one that we have to go to for general relativity that is curved, which is how we discuss gravity and localized energy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
No, absolutely.
That thing is fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything is already played out within that manifold. There are no dynamics on the manifold.
Right.
All right. What if our assumption about a fixed manifold is something that we hadn't foreseen? And I know that there are questions.
Well, let's just say it is. I'll just say it is. Like, I'm not like latching my horse to the cart of general relativity being the end all be all. There very well might be something beyond that, or something that it makes it unfixed in certain circumstances, right? Like, I'm completely open to that option.
All right, then I'm just saying that this leaves us a case where we could have something like a closed geodesic curve that doesn't satisfy our normal notions of closed geodesic curve, because we might be we're thinking like Euclid. We're just in the plane. And in the plane, we're correct, right? In the fixed space-time, very highly likely we're correct. I think I agree with that wholeheartedly. I feel like if we should take anything away from this, it should not be, oh, well, all of that work that we've done on all of this new stuff, it's kind of bogging down the field. It's going nowhere. It's a complete waste of time. Rather, we should probably be saying, well, it's really cool that we've developed all these tools, and what we need to do, which I have seen in the community much more of late, is let's examine the fundamentals to ask, did we skip any assumptions that really were important? Are you in a curved space? Kind of important when talking about parallel lines.
No, absolutely, right? Yeah, and I think that's great. I think maybe that's my bigger, like, institutional critique of string theory and, like, the way advanced physics has gone, right? It doesn't seem like, and maybe this will just be a change in culture, a change in, like, the guard, that people are going further and further, as you said, into their own super hyper niche study and working on that alone with great, success, discovering stuff, new equations that are provable and falsifiable. Great, right? But what is there, the question that the university as a whole, or that the department as a whole, or the discipline as a whole was being asked to consider, have people not considered, are we in a spherical space, or are we in a curved plane instead? Because it's not helpful to the current dog we're gooning to, or whatever, in our own corner. And maybe there are more, interdisciplinary, or more looking back a bit and seeing if we found an answer we just didn't realize applied, because we're gooning in everybody's own corner and not working at higher level principles, because that's, first of all, it's uncouth, and you're walking a boat,
Loodle.
and yada yada.
Are you calling for some kind of larger structural component to tie together all of the towers of academia to be able to, avoid the lack of Tower of Babel that they're currently mired in, stuck
I mean,
in.
as you said earlier, I think if everybody would just read their damn Socrates and realize the first thing and the only thing that we all know is we don't fucking know anything, I think we'd all be in a better place.
I mean, you're pointing to real things, and this is a really good question. It has absolutely nothing to do with the physics of closed
fine.
geodesic curves. But a thing I have noticed is we have developed so much. And one of the things I noticed through my two bachelors are in mathematics and electrical engineering. So that's where I get my love of physics there.
Well, at least you got one employable field. That's great.
Yeah,
Make double
exactly.
what I do.
So one of the things that I noticed is, one, what you're pointing to. If I read a paper in this area of my field, and not even switching fields, I just go over to a different area of my field and try to read a paper, they can be talking about the exact same thing. And until I'm already kind of an expert, I'm oblivious to that knowledge.
Well, it's until you've beaten the gatekeepers and joined the club to use the specific jargon that's both accepted by and then like parlayed by them, even if it's a concept you're already aware of. And that's what that's why a degree is worth anything nowadays, in my humble opinion. It's not so much, it's the credential, yes, it's also the networking, but it's also the jargon you learn to be able to communicate with people like you who are the quote unquote experts. That's what differentiates an expert from an amateur is they get to use the special super secret handshake Masonic lingo or whatever you want to call it, right? That the field rejects anybody who wants to be in the field and write without using it, right? So you're not going to get your dissertation published if you decide to like, this is really advanced string theory, but I'm writing it so that a freshman in college could understand it. It's going to sound basically a bit longer, but I'm actually going to break it down so anybody can understand it. Your dissertation to me will laugh you out of the damn university.
Brother,
Because it's not doing that.
I have to wholeheartedly reject this.
Really?
Yeah, no. Again, don't forget our good friend Hanlon.
Okay, I don't.
What happens is that we specialize, which is a thing that, as post-Lockeans, I would hope that we would appreciate. Specialization and individualization is actually a rather good thing, but the downside of specialization is that you parallel, not even in time parallel, but different fields working at different times will parallel redevelop similar ideas, but coming at them from different perspectives. And because they're speaking a different language, it's not like you can just be talking about it at the lunch table and the other guy is going to go, hey, I know about that. Here's this work already developed for you.
Right. I'm not suggesting that again, it's the Tower of Babel kind of lunch table of Babel thing a little bit. But I think the issue more is that there is a large push, and I've been involved in either teaching or going to school at 11 different universities, probably 6 at school, 5 teaching, and 3 both at the same time. Some tier 1 research universities, not that that matters, but just observing the way that even like within the humanities, right? Like if you are a modernist poetry person who's been doing a dissertation in T.S. Eliot and in Ezra Pound, right? Well then your advisor, as well as all the publications that publish your stuff to be able to get you tenure one day, right? The Journal of Modernism, NSMLA, whatever, will only think about works that are written in a certain kind of language and vernacular that already kind of re-entrenches the language they've been developing for so long. And I mean, it might be a thing where somebody in neurobiology will come up one day at a lunch table or after reading a paper online and be like, oh my God, I read your paper on T.S. Eliot, and what you're saying here is concept of metaphor is very similar to what we're dealing with like neural pathway imaging and fMRIs. That's possible, right? But the modernist poets in the faculty are not going to give your dissertation abstract or your dissertation prospectus a pass unless you're writing it in lockstep with the way they're talking about the field as far as the terminology, even the scope of discovery. I had to break with that, which is why everybody hates me.
Well, let's agree that this happens to some extent or another in all fields. And maybe I'm just defensive of my fields, but I didn't feel that happened as much in terms of having more of a political agenda underlying the focus of the material in the more hard science dash math arenas, but it's going to happen everywhere. The question is it a good thing? So to probe you, I want to ask something like, do you think that undergraduate humanities should have a larger concentration on the classics?
3,000,000%. I
Oh.
always included them regardless. I always insisted I write my own syllabi. I always included them in every freshman freaking English 101, English 102. We're reading Socrates. We're reading Ayn Rand. We're reading Solzhenitsyn. We're reading Rules for Radicals. We're reading a little bit of Plato's Republic. We're reading Notes from the Underground. We're reading a bit of Kafka. We're reading, so not only is that
Welcome in, meine
ground
Freunde.
everything, but like I insisted that happened, and I never had a single student who did not click once the light bulb came on, and who was not a better student in every other aspect of their academic career, regardless of their major, once they took my class, to be honest.
And you took the bait, hook, line, and sinker, because how dare you gatekeep into a very particularly focused way of interacting with the information? Why choose the classics over anything else?
Well, why choose some classics and not others? I mean, I'll give you the real answer is because I think that, and again, not all the classics. Some classics are, I mean, if we mean by the classics, we mean like old dead white man shit, or even old dead indigenous shit, or whatever, right? Like, I mean, some of them have value, some of them have not value, some of them are good to know because you need to combat them, like Marxism or Hegelianism, wink, wink. But the point being is that the classics, at least the ones that I incorporated into the class, in all my classes, have a fundamental aspect of dealing with, like, how does a human in a discursive way deal with knowledge?
You
deal
can
with
defend,
questions
you can
about
defend
knowledge.
all you want. You were making a diatribe against gatekeeping in terms of the particularities of the different towers of academia.
Well, I'm
So
just
now
saying,
we're
how is
asking,
me
that
exposing
good?
kids to something nobody else exposes them to gatekeeping? It's like breaking the gate.
Once again, I asked you, if you could have it your way, would you see the undergraduate programs concentrate much more on the classics? You didn't make any carve-outs. You said, yes, in general, I want all of these things to be exposed
Yes,
more
I
to the
would.
classics, and you
I
gave
would.
plenty of amazing reasons for
No,
it.
absolutely. No, so yeah, I don't retract that at all.
Okay, so can we agree that that is a form of gatekeeping?
I don't think so.
Loodle.
Well, my question, okay, well, what do you mean by gatekeeping? It's not like you have to talk about Socrates this way. Every syllabus is gatekeeping in a sense, so I'll grant you that.
Well,
I'm just saying,
there we go. So now the question becomes, is it a good thing or a bad thing? We in our system have opted towards specialization, which is why the distinct towers have grown apart from one another. If you go to, and again, I will totally grant you, I was always afraid of the humanities, and I feel I've been proven correct, because the more I hear, the more it's just chaos on that side of the world.
It's not even the humanities, it's the anti-humanities. It's disgusting now. Like, I don't even, yeah. I mean, it's gone downhill real quick when, yeah. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I mean, you should have been afraid, and unless you had a good professor who would actually hadn't drunk the communist freaking juice, you probably would have had your expectations fulfilled beyond your wildest dreams if you took a class.
So here's the thing. It's actually not the gatekeeping, because in fact we want a very good common foundation. And moreover, if we have complaints, sure, but if we have complaints, our complaints are at odds with other principles that I would argue both of us hold, which is that individualization and specialization is actually a good thing.
I agree. No, I agree.
So you do end up with this was the funniest thing my friend pointed out to me. Some lady, I think in the late 80s or 90s, is writing in a nursing journal, and she essentially rediscovered Riemann integration. she was trying to figure out dosages over a total dosage period, and she chunked them up into little blocks and added the area of the blocks to do Riemann sum
Oh, that's fucking
integration.
hilarious.
Right? She just wasn't exposed to integration, and she develops this in a different field around.
Right.
Keep in mind a bunch of other nurses that aren't going to be having discussions about, oh, well, that's just integration. Why? Because they're highly specialized to their
And they
field.
don't know about it either. Yeah.
So if we keep Hanlon in mind, I don't think that there's any kind of reason or cause other than the fact that specialization is going to encourage this kind of disparate towers of knowledge. And I'll agree with you. We could learn so much by going back and cleaning that stuff up. I just don't know how to balance both of those.
Well, here's my pushback on that, right? Is the way the university is set up, right? Is that at least ideally, the purpose of the university is to help the mind of man come to a better understanding of his place in the universe, his interaction with his others, and the nature of the good and the nature of how to act properly in the world as we see it, right? And specialization can definitely do that, to be productive, to do everything else. The thing is, when we get to like general study stuff, like freshman stuff, gen ed stuff, right? Like basically those things that we've agreed upon, supposedly, are of benefit to every human, and we are neglecting doing any of that, any of those, that we're rejecting that responsibility to build either whatever our favorite thing is. We love science writing in the form of like blog posts. So my freshman comp class is going to be writing blog posts about something medical, and that's what it is, because that's what I love. Okay, that might help the kids do very specialized at that and do good, and they could go into different fields with that. I understand that, right? But they're missing out on a very small opportunity at the university to be exposed to, again, the classics, and only certain classics, right? And we're losing a bit of our shared humanity by cordoning our students off too quickly into their own little cliques and niches. And so the towers that are up there are being built from the ground up, from freshman year, from high school, senior year, and they don't want to talk to each other anymore, so that it can be discovery. And they should be, and there could be interrogative discoveries and interdisciplinary stuff, absolutely. But since it's the humanities discipline, or a job apparently, to teach people how to be human, or at least give them the better tools to be the best sort of human they and their agency can be, and we're niching them off into reading about like post-colonial lesbian whatever literature for an entire freshman seminar, not only will they never do a humanities again, it hasn't taught them anything about shared humanities. It's taught them about sectarianism and about identity driving. Like it's doing like that's a hyperbolic example, but it's creating little molehills of Babel.
Help me out here. There's a part of me again that I can see that as a motivation for the university. I was just on the other part of the campus, as it were. So how much of this is preference for one's field? So as a math nerd, I wish everybody knew more math. But I realize what a battle that is, especially to the humanities people. They don't want to learn they see no reason.
But would you be disgusted by somebody who was highly acclaimed professor in whatever academic prestige, lawyer, whatever, right? And had never taken nonlinear equations or algebra? Because I was never going to do that. So I didn't he couldn't even add 2 and 2 because he didn't balance his textbook. He had no idea and had not been curious about geometry. Would that be a bit off-putting to you? You're a double doctorate in freaking political science and English literature, and you've never taken a geometry. You've never even bothered to watch a YouTube video about it.
Look,
Isn't that somewhat upsetting?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
It would depend on the other things that they showed me, because again, we can even take this out of academia, because I feel like a lot of the discussion today is that academia is just creating elites that are completely useless and don't actually, their degrees don't mean anything. So
See,
let's
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. So I mean, I would push back on that.
Yeah,
I'm not adopting that hypothesis.
let's go to something super simple.
All right.
What percentage of the driving population do you think knows how to change their oil in their
Less
car?
than 30.
Oh, okay. Like, and in general,
Okay, what percentage of the driver population knows what 80% of the road signs mean?
hopefully that, I mean, just because they're so daggum simple, hopefully that is much
Well,
higher.
I mean, you need a 50% to pass your driver's test in Ohio, at least.
Oh, Florida was much stricter, but we didn't have to parallel park, so maybe
Okay,
that
I'm just
accounts
talking
for
like
it.
the book test, not even the freaking practical test.
Yeah, I get what you're getting at, but what I'm pointing to here is, in society, what do? We say, well, you know what? That person is a X profession, and maybe they are not super stoked about working on their car, so it's perfectly up to them to pay a mechanic or Jiffy Lube to change their oil every X so often.
Well, absolutely, and there's not a problem with that. Yeah.
Okay. So if somebody comes to me and is absolutely brilliant about some portion of theoretical physics and doesn't know how to balance their checkbook, am I a little bit taken aback? Maybe, but I'm much more likely to concentrate on the brilliance than I am to concentrate on some arithmetic misunderstandings.
Oh no, I understand, and that's kind of nitpicking a bit. Well, I mean, I was just bouncing off your statement where you said that it's amazing to you how little math, and it's sort of saying how little math other people who aren't on your side of campus know. I was just trying to draw it to like a hyperbolic example.
Well, that's what I was wondering, because you're pointing to how little humanities that most of us know, and I'm sitting there going, look, I was in math departments, I was in physics departments, I was in chemistry departments, and economics departments. Very, like, maybe 5% of my peers would have felt that the mission of college or being in college was to learn how to be the kind of human you described.
Well, and maybe it's a covert mission, but like, so my question to that would be like, how many chemistry classes still teach the periodic table and stoichiometry? How many math classes that are geometry based still teach geometry? How many calculus classes actually go over principles of calculus? I would
The
imagine all of
vast
them.
majority.
Right. And that's the corruption in humanities I'm talking about, is the classes and subject material that we've been given the mission by the provost or the founder of the university, whatever, to impart to our students, right, are being rankly rejected and neglected by humanities. At least your chemistry class still teaches the periodic table.
Okay,
That's
but both
the
of these
difference.
colleges are at the same university. Which one is the mission of the university? To teach them how to be specialists in their field, or to teach them, and I don't even want to try because I'll butcher it, but to
You're
be
fine.
the type of human that you were describing?
Well, I'm just talking about, you have even somebody who's a math or science specialist, right, after they do their first 2 years of gen eds, or maybe one, I'm not sure what it is now, maybe 1.5, they have gen ed requirements that everybody who goes to university has been decided by the gods above that these classes are essential. Everyone must take them in some set or form, your QA, your QB requirement, do these things that we've all decided you must know in order to
Well,
graduate.
that's what you
right?
want, right?
Well, no, it's not. I mean, I'm saying that since we have those first 2 years, I'm satisfied with that structure. What I'm saying is that the humanities especially are neglecting to impart that information that they have the year and a half to do it with. So I don't blame anybody who's like, fuck the humanities, they're worthless. I took a class, it was terrible. I don't even know any of that ever. And they're probably not wrong. The thing is, for your side of the campus has been like still teaching calculus and calculus classes. Ours has been going fucking batshit crazy. And so those 2 general ed years or whatever, right? Which is all I'm saying that should be given, right? Which the university decided that all this conglomeration of different knowledge from different fields will help build a better rounded or a better electrical engineer. If you know a little bit of Nietzsche maybe, or whatever it is, right?
This is all possible, but I feel like you're now at the point of eating your own tail, because
think
where we
so.
started this was the discussion that, well, theoretical physics has gone wild. There's nothing grounding them anymore. They're all off in their They're independent towers, and now you're saying, well, no. Your side is fine. You know, the physicists, it's the humanities.
Oh
worried
no,
about.
I'm saying that you do the general ed stuff way better because you still actually stick to your subject matter.
I see. I've had so many discussions even about. All right, first off, let's point out that my side of the campus has it rather easy because what defines our subject matter is relatively well. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be picked at just because I know the field, but for most people, for most times, it's relatively well established.
Sure.
What humanities is supposed to be doing? What era of history are we in?
Right. I mean, yeah, and that varies, right? But
Yeah, so
again, that goes back to my official mission statement of the humanities, and not that every person needs to go through it, but when we have gen ed classes, right? Maybe a little bit of classics. Not only that, so another bugaboo I'll give you is like when I was at the University of Emory, across American universities, all English classes at all levels, graduate, undergraduate, senior, junior, doesn't matter, right? High school included. All English classes that are out there last less than 3% of English classes taught any poetry at all.
Thank God.
Fuck you.
I'm sorry, buddy.
I made every
I'm
single
sorry.
humanities class, every single literature class I taught above the 101s, which is the writing class, really. I
Well,
taught
see-
nothing but poetry.
This is why I specialized in my field because every year going through middle school and high school when they did the poetry section, I have the worst example because I had the same English teacher throughout all 3 years of middle school.
Well, I'm sorry.
And the first two, well, it was an alpha thing. She was like the alpha. Anyway, regardless, the first 2 years
Was she
I
good at
busted
it?
my butt. Yeah, she
Okay.
was. Because of her, I remember the sentence structure diagram breakdowns that we would
which
do.
is
Yeah.
super helpful. Yeah.
Nobody knows about those things.
I
So
do.
like
My
only
mom-
because of
my
her.
mom and some nuns beat the shit out of me about that. No, I love it. You
So-
can understand with law in the legal field, with understanding statute and fucking Supreme Court precedent, that's a fucking like silver bullet in your back pocket.
All right, so not saying she was a bad teacher, but the first
I'm not
2
saying you're
years,
not, yeah.
I tried my butt off during the poetry section. I tried to make my stuff have kind of a bounce and a rhyme, and got very poor grade. My 8th grade year, I was in fuck it mode, and I was like, you know what? It sounds like everybody else is just putting bullshit on paper. Why don't I just put bullshit on paper? And I got an A. So
Oh, you were writing poetry, not reading or analyzing it. Oh.
well, it was both. You know, you have the reading and analyzing section, but you also have the writing poetry, and that was always what stuck with me. Is when doing the analysis, it seemed to me as a layman, as somebody who never quite clicked for, that it was just kind of gobbledygook. You know, you make it the purple door means what you need the purple door to mean.
See, I hate people. I hate teachers like that. Let's do a quick example, real quick. I agree that your experience is probably the same as 99% of other high school and college students across the nation. Absolutely. Well, maybe fucking Moby Dick was just an evil whale, and that's what it meant. Or maybe fucking Tiger burning bright in the forest. It's actually about nuclear war. Well, I see the symbolism. That's a fair interpretation. Or who knows? Maybe Shakespeare was gay, and that's why this character might be gay. Like whatever you lend. The idea that there are a large number of potential interpretations based upon language, metaphor, symbolisms, etc., is true. There are a much greater number of invalid, wrong interpretations, and a smaller number that are invalid, wrong, dangerous interpretations. Example. You probably heard this one before. Two roads diverged in yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And being one traveler, long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then taking the other is just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, for though it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn it really about the same. Oh, I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that's made all the difference. I skipped the 2 stanzas, but Robert Frost, right? It's on every fucking high school library thing. I took the path less traveled by, that's made all the difference. The point of the poem is, and this is like, it has nothing to do with like take the road less traveled, be adventurous, be your own person, be a unique individual. The point is in the code at the end. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. That's made all the difference. The entire point is that he's somewhere in the future, he'll be like, this fucking stupid, mediocre, mundane walk to the forest, right? I, with my hubris and my intelligence and my human will, am going to cook up a life-changing, like, oh, little Johnny, come here, let me tell you about how to live your life. A piece of false, bad faith philosophy that imports some really hedonistic, prideful, Luciferian importance to myself that I'm going to gaslight other people with later on. And to think one is so important as to be able to dictate, right, both the causality of their life, that this path in this forest would have no meaning and significance actually. That's what the poem's doing. That I'm going to whip it into some freaking piece of spin doctor jargon that's going to make me important and tell other people, follow me, this is the way to live. That's what Robert Frost is on about in that poem. And so all the it's all so funny, it's so witty, because all the people who are like, oh yeah, path less traveled by, be an individual, yeah, fuck the system. He knew, he could feel that they were just going to freaking bite his lure, and now it's the most popular fucking poster in the English classroom. And for exactly the reason he was trying to point out and be critical of.
So again, we spin back to the question, which I want to default to allow the specialization, because otherwise, and again, earlier you spoke about how there are a few ways to do something, relatively right to one another, but there are just infinitely more ways to be wrong about said thing.
Interpreting something is why I said, but yeah.
But this gets into the interpretations of what I'm abstracting upward here, the interpretations of what the fields are supposed to produce. So we agree that there's some level of gatekeeping and streamlining that we would like to maintain, because it creates a common foundation from which we can productively branch off of
and replicate in future classes or future cohorts in the university too. Yes.
Yeah, but once, and maybe we messed up by making these mandated courses. Maybe that was, by putting in the mandate, it created the false lack of demand that otherwise would have been there, kind of idea. But other than that, I don't know how to balance these two things, because I would almost rather have the individualization.
Okay, but I think mine is really just a different pragmatic application. Is that you have somebody who's doing string theory or doing experimental physics or doing high-level mathematics, like a James Lindsay or whatever, or somebody who's doing even like psychology and like taking it more towards like the humanist side, like Peterson did when he was a teacher, not whatever the fuck's happened of late. But like somebody who's invested in a field and being an expert in the discipline, right? And doing it, I think, in good faith to get the most out of it, right? Oh, and the same thing even in string theory, to have the expertise, the cordon off, and you're doing your thing the best as anybody else, or maybe 3 or 4 competing scientists, and you're publishing your work so that the people who might help and be able to further the discipline in your niche area are able to read and understand it. It really doesn't matter what anybody else is, if a 4th grader can read it, because you're working towards the goal of something, right? And the difference, I think, is between like the hard sciences, definitely mathematics, social sciences are weird. It can be 6 of one, half dozen of the other, right? Like the syllabus that you all teach, if you're doing a quantum physics class, you're going to have a couple different sources talk about new thoughts and theories, right? But you're going to teach the fundamental principles of what quanta is and how it's being applied, right? You get to an upper level English class, anything above these general eds I was talking about, like a 3,000 or 3,000, 4,000, or a grad level class, any of the years of graduate school, right? The professor gets assigned 3 classes, and they have the complete carte blanche to do whatever it is, and it's got to check a box or 2 and you can make the justification. It's got to check either like a time period of literature, so like Beowulf to Shakespeare, Shakespeare to You're the modernists after that. It has to be something about a race, a gender, a nationality. That's another box you can check. It could be anything. So the specialization and the nichiness of the humanities, especially the English and philosophy to that extent at some point when you get to the graduate level classes, right? Students will go to the class and it's not a class on quantum physics or on string theory or on planar geometry or on the precepts of I don't know, like resistors. I don't even like electrical engineering shit. Like I don't know, like fucking thermodynamics and fucking fluid theory or whatever it is. But like those are like solid concepts. On the humanities side, it becomes this very masturbatory. You're the guardian, the special piece of knowledge, and you're making your syllabus to teach everybody about Liza Minnelli or whatever. I mean, good for you. But like every other professor in that department is doing the same thing, and there's nothing unified. There's nothing that's actually developing the field. The field's not developing. It's fraying into a bunch of freaking goon sessions with people who are like cloning little acolytes with them. Jacques Lacan's Travis to the University, if you're aware, is like a great example of this kind of kicking off.
And I think we can tie all the way back here. This is Weinstein's whole critique of the academic system is exactly what you just said, except about physics departments. And the reason I'm not buying in is because there are so many good reasons why this would happen naturally anyway, to have this kind of individualization. Now, I specifically wanted to dig in about the physics, more rigorous side of the campus, and I understand that your side is much more difficult here. I don't know, there's trade-offs. Like, your side could do better. I say your side and my side. We're already creating.
I know. We can just use it as pseudonyms. It's fine.
I feel like a common mission statement does a lot of work in the humanities, in the arts. The mission that you laid out, if that was more centralized, then you could, I hate rubrics, but even through the sense of a rubric, you could tie back to, is this meeting the mission? And then you don't get as much fray and decay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, I get what you're saying, right? So, for example, the Emory University's English Department mission statement, right? University-wide graduate, undergraduate, is focus on the power of language to interpret a changing world, fostering inclusive, welcoming environments for literary study, and empowering students to communicate intelligently and critically in any of their future careers.
Well, there you go. Gramsci already got through.
Yeah. I mean, he's been kicking around too, and Pablo Freire too, the whole deal, right?
But if you grade it on that mission statement,
then everyone would pass and everyone would not pass at the same time.
Well, are they producing people that are critical thinkers? Not in the sense that we were taught in elementary school that we should, think seriously and take a problem apart into its many components so that we could put it back together, because that was the whole goal.
Right. Can they think constructively and critically, break it down and come up with a
Can they
solution
critique the norms of society? That is probably
no,
what is
they
meant
imbibe
by
it and regurgitate it. That's what that means now, is they don't say un-PC words. In fact, if somebody does, they snap down on them. That's what that means in practice.
Well, I'm not thinking about practice. I'm thinking about the praxis of the people who wrote this mission.
Well, I mean, the praxis is exactly like, if you're in my class and you say something that I don't consider as welcoming or inclusive, I'm going to make damn sure that you're in enough trouble that you fix yourself.
I agree with you, and there is a grander critique here, but from the motivation of the person who wrote this mission statement, there's a strong A, maybe A+ across the board likely going on. Decaying into the many ways that you can say that norms suck and everything around you is just terrible. And are they just parroting it? Yes, they're just parroting it. But that's good enough for the person who wrote this mission.
Right, but that's the problem I have with my undergrads, right? Is like, I don't. People got to write the final paper would be like write an essay on the color purple and describe how race and discrimination plays an important part for the characters in the book. Final essay prompt, right? My final essay prompts are take any text you read this year and write something interesting about it that you find personally interesting about it. Provide 5 pieces of evidence that are quotes from the text itself and tell me why it mattered to you. You are also welcome to tell me that I hated everything and this text was completely bullshit and worthless to me, and give me 5 pieces of useless information you found in it that made you never want to read a book again. Go and prosper. Right? And there's a same thing like, okay, write an essay that says why Grendel's mom is bad in Beowulf. That's the most ridiculous. Yeah, they're very quick and easy to grade. Because if they don't make the template or expectation you have in your head, oh, that's not there, no. It takes a while to freaking sit down and read a student's essay that is a part of who they are, that's an articulation of their thoughts, and actually looking at it for whether or not the thought is good, if they're making an argument, whether or not they're backing up with evidence from what they've read, and whether or not whatever their point, even if I hate their point, if I disagree fundamentally, if they have a satanic point, that does not matter. What matters is whether or not they are articulating it and then evidencing it in a way that makes it cogent and understandable. That's my job as a teacher, not to fucking indoctrinate them or make them write an essay that I want them to write, is to make them better at, at writing, at what we would say critically thinking, of doing what you teach them in a 101 class. Read the book. What does it say? What's the evidence? What's the argument? Do you agree, disagree? Make a good case, right? But the thing is, when you read my book, write my essay, go fuck yourself, peasant, is terrible. That's a disservice because the teachers are lazy. And this is in English. I'm just bitching about my own self, but yeah.
All right. I feel like I have just proven something to myself that you will not appreciate at all.
No, that's fine.
Just so that I can clarify, when you're having them go back and find these snippets and reconstructing something cohesive, is the goal merely cohesive regurgitation?
No. It's you start with the argument. Like, what argument are you making? And then find evidence for your argument. And then articulate it in a way that the evidence warrants your claim.
Would you agree that in order to produce, because again, if there is an established form of said argument and you can just cohesively regurgitate, that would suffice, but I don't think that's quite what you're looking for. So I'm going to ask, would you agree that it is important that they are capable of deconstructing the argument in order to rebuild its pieces into that cohesive whole?
Well, yes, and that's why I also don't overdetermine what it is they're arguing about or even what text they're reading from. Or they're forced to write about, right? They have
regardless of the topic, whatever their thesis is, it is not enough. What I'm hearing from you, I think, is that it would not be enough to say, okay, here is an established thesis. I can just go cut and paste from different sources that are all basically making the same thesis and put them together in a way that reads smoothly enough and turn this in and this is my homework. Instead,
sorry, go ahead.
I think what you're pushing for is, if you're going to make the argument, the thing that you should be reconstructive, the thing that should be cohesive, the thing that you should be taking from these many places is first a deconstruction of the many pieces that needed to be assembled to create a strong argument in the first place.
I mean, yes, I suppose that's generally true. Yes, I'm not going to disagree with that.
Based Hegel enjoyer. I knew
Not
I'd
at
get
all.
you on board.
The thing is, it gets wrong.
I knew
right?
I'd get you on board.
I'm not going to lie just to fuck Hegel. But the point, so you have to deconstruct the argument, right? Because you're making your own claim. So you're making a thesis statement, right? Has to be an individual, independent, like original thesis statement. That has to have, actually an argument, not like, I really love the Green Knight because I went in the Green Knight because I like green and I like knights. Like, that's not cutting it. Neither is, the yellow wallpaper is about a woman in a mental institute. It's not a fucking summary. It's not a book report. It can be whatever that, one of the best papers I got was about the I mean, you probably won't know about it, but Chaucer's Canterbury Tales was about the Miller's Tale, which is like debauchery and rape and cuckoldry and whatever. And somebody came up with a very interesting argument that the purpose of the story was to reinstill in the people who were on their pilgrimage to go to Canterbury, which is where the tales come from, right? Everyone tells their own story, was to build upon the previous story, which had kind of a little bit of cuckoldry and cheating, and to like ingrain on this certain day of the travel the importance of chastity and move closer to God. So as we move closer to the Canterbury Cathedral, we get an indulgence for being there. That people were moving closer to God, and the Miller's Tale was a special lesson in teaching them about the sins of the flesh, adultery, cheating, whatever, right? And lust. And he gave the evidence. I'm like, that's unique and new and original. And I mean, so I guess they deconstructed the tale in the larger context of the, the series of tales, and made a thought about it, and then found that their thought wasn't just freaking frivolous, that there actually was a good basis for it, both in history and in the text. Fucking sophomore. But the point being is, like, that's what I'm talking. I mean, there is deconstruction, but
All right,
there's also...
Can I
Yeah.
attempt to rephrase all of that?
You certainly
And
may.
you tell me where I'm getting it wrong. So,
Mhm.
the first thing you notice is that the person who wrote this essay has a knowledge of the underlying thesis, or the generally accepted purview of the information about and around this other work that is being referenced. Enough so that they can take it apart in a rather interesting way, and they put those pieces back together based on the knowledge of the, again, they're not coming off of nothing. It's based off of the original thesis. They synthesize this deconstruction into a new idea, as it were.
I mean, I suppose that's kind of I would disagree with the synthesis antithesis portion of the equation, but I mean that's the logical process. Yeah, Hegel didn't violate logical laws.
No, I
mean, I can make
Hegel's prescriptions may be somewhat dog shit, but this notion, I think, is something that people like you and I should probably just agree on, is that what we want a common foundation, which is found in the thesis. We want somebody who has enough processing ability to be able to deconstruct that thesis and see it for the many component pieces that it is, such that as they move forward and generate new ideas, they're not, gay space communism. It'll just happen, guys. Somehow it'll, like the meme of the missing step and then get rich. That's exactly what we're avoiding, because we're coming from this common grounding. So the deconstruction being done in an effort to reconstruct in a new and meaningful way is the goal.
I mean, I don't disagree with that. And I think it's preferable to the way things have intellectually developed, right? Because the last part, what you emphasized correctly, is the idea that all the deconstruction and all the analysis, right, isn't an end of itself, and it's not to infinitely criticize everything. It's actually to come up with a better individualized argument based upon the data and the evidence that you have gathered. Your thesis and your antithesis of breaking down and deconstructing the prior thing, right, is only actually beneficial philosophically speaking once you reconstruct it to a new thesis, even if you're fucking totally wrong. I mean, beneficial to humanity, not necessarily your grade.
I mean, yeah, whatever distinction of good that we're going to place on this thing, the good is achieved not from the act of deconstruction, but the act of reconstruction, rather. And so,
And
if
then
I just
floating a
call
little
these
duck out there in the river and seeing if it floats or not, yeah.
So if I just call these things, like the first step, the ground level understanding, the thesis, and
Sure.
the second level understanding, the antithesis, the deconstruction mode, and then the rejoining into something new based off of those two things being pre-done and worked through the synthesis.
Mhm.
The distinction I hear between, you've got the Hegel lovers and the Hegel haters. The Hegel haters want to concentrate on the thesis, and they think because some people choose to only do the deconstruction that it's bad. And then I've got the Hegel lovers who hate the thesis and they only want to do the deconstruction. And so I'm going, hey guys, there's a third leg of this triangle, and all of these three things come together in a meaningful way, and in a very, I would argue, intelligent process of construction.
See, I'm not a hater of the thesis. I think Hegel's method and Hegel's like analytical chops are great. I don't find fault in his method. I don't find fault in the Hegelian synthesis in and of itself. I think it's a valid tool that's applied to about everything. Like, I'm not a Hegel hater because I hate the fact that somebody doesn't have to come up with a reintegration or it's gotten post-structuralist, and I'm not a lover because, or I'm not a lover because like the thesis is great. Like, it's not about that. The process is good. The model is solid. My problem with Hegel is the over extrapolation of this very based and very foundational and well operating formula to
and now
horrible ends.
Yeah, no, I see.
That's where that's my problem with Hegel. It's not
Okay,
that
good.
he's invalid. My problem is a fucking like demonic asshat.
Well, as I've seen with many people throughout history, somehow their descriptions may be beautiful and wonderful, and their prescriptions are just terrible dog shit.
I know several people like that these days. Yes. But no, I agree. And my problem isn't, I don't really have a problem with Hegel. I mean, he was kind of an ass in his personal life, but I don't really care. I'm an ass in my personal life. But it's like, his method works well. The application of it, though, it's online. If you want to count, I mean, in my opinion, this is over-analyzing, oversimplifying. But like, if you want to talk about like ideas that had a good basis or a good logical basis that have the highest body counts in human history, Hegel's up there with Marx and Lenin.
No, that's unfair.
Well, I don't think World War I is Hegel, in my opinion. We can do that some other time, go over the whole deal. But World War I was the adoption of Hegel's idea in the philosophy of history put into practice.
Maybe I'm a midwit because I don't put Stalin on Marx.
Well, I'm saying using his leveraging the ideas in a way that weren't exactly true to the process. So I was trying to. I mean, I'm not trying to one-for-one correlate them, right? I'm saying Marx has them. Yeah. Like people, there is a struggle, and I mean, I'll put Stalin on Marx. Stalin is a unique person, right? Lenin, though, Lenin had a lot to do with, at least certainly like Maoism or whatever. I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
the atrocities in our lifetime.
The German aristocracy were stuffy fucks, especially because after reading Hegel, and here's the really funny thing is that people decide, I'm not dumb enough to say that I understand Hegel. There's a pattern that I've noticed in Hegel that I hope I'm extrapolating correctly, but it's when people say, no, we understand what is being proposed here, because Hegel, again, notoriously hard to... I've never been able to actually fully read any of his works.
Well, the dialectic works fine, right? But you get to the philosophy of right, for example, or you get to the philosophy of history, and things go off the rails when you start applying that or stating outright that we can use our idea of the thesis and the antithesis, right, to understand that those who are more advanced, we can see the fruits of the labor. The societies that are more advanced are obviously morally better. And if we're going to try to progress history on, it's the duty of those who have more technological innovations to go and conquer those and subjugate them until they get their shit together. And that's not only what we're morally ought to do, but that's also the only way to get to the absolute and know the mind of God is by through this process, which I've through 800 pages, based in the Hegelian synthesis, but now I'm applying to intersocial, intersocietal interactions with a very fucked up value structure. That's where it gets off the rails.
Maybe I hear what I want to hear, but I feel like we all think that that's correct to some level.
Okay.
Should you work to better your life so that you can provide a better atmosphere for your immediate family members?
Absolutely. Myself as an individual should, yes.
Okay, so there is some yet heretofore unknown version of you who is a quote unquote better version of you who is doing better to provide for their loved ones. And that ought be the goal, right?
Yeah, without facing competing goals, yes.
Okay, now you point to a subtlety, which is absolutely correct, is how do you choose? And this is where I was pointing to. It's the people that say, I know the answer to this. I know what he meant. And when he's talking about the end of history, because philosophy has eaten itself, that's obviously a little bit far too boisterous, in my opinion.
But Hegel had the formulation, though, of the collapse of all ethical distinctions into the universal, the absolute, which was like the highest ethical duty, which overrides your personal goals, your family duties, whatever, right, is only found in conforming to the societal norms and customs of the state, which is the most advanced as far as its technological progression. Stuchtenkeit, I believe. The ethical life of the state one must conform to, and gets rid of the individuality, the individual ethical obligation, and therefore whatever the state decides to do and the institutions of the state want to do, right, that supplants the individual norm, because the collapse of ethics into the universal is the approaching of the absolute end of history. That's like, I don't have a problem with his first two books of philosophy. I don't have a problem with the Hegelian synthesis. It's when he starts writing shit like this, and even if nobody ever read it and nobody even cared, that's fundamentally fucked up to me.
I would argue we believe that too.
I don't.
Okay, how do I pull this directly into our notions? A very common complaint that it is throughout much of our society, and maybe you and I are oddballs about this and we're not quite as on board, but a thing you hear is, we ought to have more trade schools. The boomers had it easy. They fell out of high school and into a job, and they were on a career path, and so long as they maintained their career path and didn't screw up, life was handed to them. And
I hear that said a lot, yeah.
So what we ought have is similar paths, whether it be through the government or through whatever. And the only way this occurs is a very much more old world-minded philosophy in which people are pretty much preset into their life. If your dad was a butcher, you will be a butcher. If your dad was okay,
a glover, you were a glover. If you were a stonesmith, your family will spend the next 300 years building Notre Dame.
Well, that's the only way that consistently works, where you just have a comfortable path in life because it's the only choice. When you only have one choice, it's the most comfortable choice.
Yeah, well, because if you break out, all the people who break out of it are either never heard from again, or flee to a different country, or the state catches them poaching deer, or they decide to make it as a starving artist and die of syphilis 3 years later. Like, no, I agree. I agree with like the comfortability of the guarantee. It's like universal basic income to some extent. As long as you know it's there, it's an easy choice to fuck off and do whatever. No, I agree. The problem with it is, in my problem with it, right? It comes from a critique of Hegel from Kierkegaard. I read Hegel after I came to Kierkegaard in my senior year of high school, and was just infatuated with him. And he had a lot of critiques of Hegel, so I was already biased when I started reading Hegel in graduate school. But like Kierkegaard's stuff rings true, and it rings true from the humanities perspective, I guess, right? Is the idea that everything can be reduced to human reason, and that the Hegelian dialectic, the Hegelian logical process, right, especially as the grounding of human interactions, the grounding of running a state, or whatever, right, is fundamentally anathema to the human condition. especially when you look at the way that Kierkegaard was a Christian, right? The idea that faith in anything, in human interactions, and the fact your faith, your wife's not cheating on you, right, relies upon the human unique ability to conceptualize and incorporate a paradox. Hegel was killing paradoxes left and right. That was the whole goal of his analytical philosophy, right? So the idea that if
No,
we
hang on. No. I would push back there. And this
Mhm.
is why I'm willing to defend what was previously said, because you can call it a state, you can call it whatever you want. Whatever system of normalcy is want to be maintained for, as people generally try to phrase it, the greater good. Wouldn't society
of the
just be
land,
so
yeah.
much better?
I mean, yeah, like fundamentally, pragmatically, like normatively, like yeah, I have no quandary with that statement as like a observational natural world and a normative description.
But this has to be a paradox for Hegel.
What do you mean?
If you have found the path to the one true good, then any deconstruction of that path should be anathema.
I mean, that's why he spent
Any antithesis.
13,000 pages writing about why he was right, and in like getting things a bit crooked in his justifications following his actual formulation.
I agree
maybe
with the goal of Hegel here, in that I think we should want to be more. And I know this doesn't quite line up, but I think of the
You're
world as
fine.
just a lot of repetitions.
I'm not being a douchebag with any of this. Like, just say what you
All right.
feel. We'll go over it.
You've got Enlightenment era thinkers that are trying to systematize everything to do the extinguishing of paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the Romantic thinkers, which are pushing back and embracing the paradox. And the reason the pendulum swings each time is if you push far enough in one direction, you find out that you're lacking in some way, and then the other side takes over. But I am want to default to the system thinkers. I am want to default to the Enlightenment thinkers, even though eugenics is terrible and awful. I am want to default to the modernists over the postmodernists. Because it
would still work, though. Like, you can have a eugenic society that's very morally abhorrent, right?
Well, there you
It
go.
functions,
You just embraced a very, like, if we put Kant into the frame here, Kant's saying, well, whatever the good is, you should structure everything toward that good. And Hegel is saying, okay, the good is something that is built out of a systematization of all of our contributions. Right. So all to the state.
Yeah, and the more technology that can more autonomize and more like efficiently process all the things, right? And the states should be in charge of that. It's more good. I agree. Like, it logically follows. And also anybody who's out of our way or who's in our way, or not up to our level of snuff, or even thinks differently on some points, right, should be either brought up to speed under the sword or gotten rid of, because they are harming the greatest good. I think you do Kant
like
a
homeless
little dirty.
encampments, right?
I think you do Kant a little dirty to like say that his concept of the good was the same as Hegel. You kind of like imported.
No.
Kant, and he didn't say that.
I'm saying that unless I have my time frames here wrong, I thought that Kant was before Hegel.
He was.
Okay, so I'm saying that Hegel is embracing a Kantian. Oh God, what's the
categorical imperative?
Thank you, categorical imperative, in saying whatever you have as this prescriptive, or descriptive, deontological good, whatever it is, this thing that is
good.
Is good, yes, outside of your decision about it. Mm-hmm. Then your inference of good should be everything that is essentially
pursuing that and rejecting everything that doesn't pursue that.
Right.
I mean, he did import Kant's notion of good in that very absolutist way. The whole thing is like the way that Kant arrives at that good is fundamentally different.
But Kant is, again, a systematizer, and Hegel is the end of this systematization. And then you're pointing to Kierkegaard, who is, as I would argue, more of a romantic under this framework. He's
I mean,
trying.
I'd say he's a Christian existentialist, but I wouldn't put him with romantics, but at least philosophically. But yeah, but you're not wrong.
He is rejecting the thesis. He's rejecting the system.
I mean, I think he's trying to transcend the system by finding a good that exists beyond the system. I mean, maybe that's
In
the
paradox, in a thing that's fundamentally unconstructible, like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
No, then I go back to your Emory mission statement, and I congratulate them because yes, they've got a good paradox going on there. Whatever they find.
But I mean, the paradox to Kierkegaard, right, is fundamentally philosophically Christian. It's the idea of our divine and our finite natures, which make us, every person is a living paradox because we are two not co-substantiated, impossible things together, and our temporal self, our fleshy body, our human body, right, our human mind and logic, has a different good, a different end that it seeks than does our divine, our infinite, our immortal side, and that's the paradox. And you can't necessarily find that by following. You can find one of them by following a society and doing well and whatever. The other one you can't unless you acknowledge the paradox and then seek to resolve it, which might not look like the easy choice, might not look like the good society's established for you. That's the paradox he's talking about. I'm sorry.
I will totally agree with that. I'm just going to say, let's take the next step. Where do we get to next? Well, we're breaking away from the structured version.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get, at some point along the line here, we get Nietzsche. And Nietzsche is as Hegel in the destructured direction as Hegel is in the overly structured direction. Nietzsche says, fuck it, bro. Fuck the state. Fuck the greater good. The good is what is good for you here and now. It's not a hedonistic good. It's like there's a Machiavellianism built into this. There's a power. There's a Thucydidean might makes right built into this. Fuck the norms. Fuck your thesis. My power is all that matters.
See, I disagree. I mean, you can definitely find a million quotes from Nietzsche in his aphorisms that say that stuff, like in explicitly saying it. I think if you take Nietzsche's corpus as a whole, especially his latter works, right, like he was like the first shitposter troll that ever existed, and he was just like burning everything down and saying shit that was, oh, this is the truth, just only you are the thing that matters, you're the lion and the camel, whatever. That was just putting the mirror up to the bullshit, as David Mamet would say, that was going on, and didn't expect or think that anybody would follow him as if they followed Hegel, because he wasn't a systematizer. No, I agree that you can find him saying all kinds of crazy stuff, but he was like a weird, like mystic, poet, hermit kind of guy who was he like,
not in love with Thucydides? Did he not reject?
Was that the name of this prostitute? I'm just joking.
I'm not that aware. Like he rejects he rejects Plato, he rejects Socrates, all of these idealistic thinkers. Those Greeks, they got it wrong. The guy who got it right might makes right guy.
Well, except him, he prefers those to the systematizers.
They're honest in a way.
Who are the systematizers or the Thucydides?
No, the Thucydides. Like there's a cruel honesty here about the world that one probably ought to be aware of.
And he thinks, and Nietzsche's, I think, not his ultimate thesis, but one of his foundational theses is that, one, you need to see the world where it's at and understand that has a lot of power in the world. And then go away live as a hermit for 20 years and talk to birds and drink a lot and whatever. And when you've fucking untaken that bit of knowledge and systematization, or that desire for power, or that thinking out of your mind, come back and realize how ridiculous the world, how ridiculous language is, how ridiculous currency is, and just kind of be able to see that everything is being done in this kind of Thucydides-like way whether it's the systematizers or the anarchists, and to just realize that, like, I need to grow beyond that and beyond that to have some sort of moral compass where the good is not dependent upon it stands independent, but only based up, and to some extent, but only based upon rejecting everything else that is. I'm not saying that's how one should live their lives or how to build a nation. I'm just saying, like, Nietzsche's critique ultimately is that you have to go through the understanding Thucydides, understanding the Prince, understanding Hegel, understanding Confucius and the Taoists and the Buddhists, and turning away from society entirely to live alone for a good bit, and then come back and realize, wow, everybody's fucked up. This is thus spoke Zarathustra, is where he kind of starts formulating this point. It's actually a fun read.
But then shouldn't we agree that his critique on some level is as hollow, standing alone by itself, as Hegel's?
I mean, is how hollow is, like, in an ethical sense or in, like, a prescriptive sense? Like, sorry, as hollow as what? Like, at least I think the one thing I'd say for him, and maybe it is as hollow, I'm not saying it's not, I'm saying, like, is a human ought to understand Hegel and Kierkegaard and Nostradamus and Plato and Sun Tzu and the Prince of York, and then go ponder that over, absent of the influence of society, and then just turn an eye back to society and be like, wow, none of this shit ends well. So it's a deconstructive critique. He doesn't have a prescriptive answer to what the good even is. He's just saying, look around us and see what the fuck's going on. Everybody's got it wrong. And his whole idea of the religion is the opiate of the masses, God is dead, and the whole point of the God is dead allegory is to be like, yeah, we killed God and we've replaced him with government. Like, you don't see, there's no way out of this tunnel. I don't care if it's God or if it's freaking Zeus or if it's the state. Like, his whole idea of the madman running back down from the mountain with the lantern saying, where is God? We've looked for him. Do you not realize you have killed him? He does not live here anymore. Is the idea that God exists. It depends what you want God to be. Is it the society? Is it the old God? Is it the new God? If there's not one right now, we're going to make one based on expediency and productivity and whatever real quick. So you've killed him and you're bringing him right back. That was his, like, that's his, like, I guess, sociological observation is that, yeah, we've killed God in a theological sense, but we've already got a couple more vying for the throne, if you will.
Well, here's a pattern that I'm terrible at describing, but I'm trying to allude to as a layman from my perspective, is this oscillating back and forth between a Platonic systematization, the pen is mightier than the sword, to a Thucydidean, Nietzschean, kind of Machiavellian in a lot of senses, cold, harsh reality in which the sword is that which slays the man, right? So the thing I note here is that these two things are in complete tension with one another.
Absolutely.
Constantly sloshing back and forth between one another. And so it seems to me to be silly to reject either one. It feels like at choosing a given point in time, that which the previous era would call the thesis, or they would call the antithesis, is now the thesis, and the same moving into the next era. And a paradigm shift is really kind of a looping back in this structure where the critiques of the deconstructive era get incorporated based on the thesis in the same way we described that paper from earlier.
I mean, we'll look at it even that way, right? Nietzsche, who was anti-statist, anti-theological, anti-hierarchical power structure, right? after he passed away through his sister and brother-in-law to some extent, right, was largely catalyzed and used out of con or in con or whatever, right, to fast track the Nazi fucking political scheme. So like his prescriptive nature was obviously completely dog shit because it was, I mean, it's the, you know what I mean? So like even somebody who's completely pendulum swinging the other way can be leveraged and used and co-opted by the biggest state, that capital S state, that you can want.
And it's going to swing one way or the other depending on whether we're listening to Nietzsche or we're listening to Hegel.
Right, and so I just say like Hegel's formulation of the synthesis, right, is legit. It's good. The extension of it in the subsequent works took a veer and is immensely dangerous and caused a lot of harm. The basics are great. Same with Plato. Plato's basics are great.
Hang on. This is what I'm pointing toward.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that you are rejecting is silly to reject because the other side is just as silly. You're saying, let's not go and put our faith in the state because we have a lot of context and understanding as to why we don't want to put our faith in the state. But at the same time, depending on how we blur these lines, well, here, let me ask it to you this way. Whose society is a high-trust society, Hegel's or Kant's?
That's very interesting. I'd say both for different reasons. Probably Hegel's because the state has more power and they will step down on anybody who's
and people are following what they're supposed to do, and everybody knows what everybody else's place is and position is, and you can have a lot of trust because everything's already kind of worked out.
Sure. I mean, I guess if high trust is I actually trust my fellow man, then not so much. But
no,
sure,
you would absolutely trust your fellow man.
That they won't transgress against the law. Yes.
The problem comes into when the state is mandating, and that's why we have all of those fears. But on first glance, if we look at Nietzsche's society here and we say, does the common man trust his neighbor in Nietzsche's society? He's going to say, no. The common man is trying to figure out how to get a leg up on his neighbor. Because personal empowerment demands this.
If we take that tendency of Nietzsche's thought and we just go full on Machiavellian, sure, that would be what that suggests. Yes. But that's again the Hegelian thesis almost, right? That's the first step in the process is you recognize how power operates, right? And then you reject it, and then you move on to make something better. Is this whole camel? You have to slay the lion, then cross the desert like a camel, and then become the infant to make the world anew. That's the large part of his philosophy, the descriptive philosophy, is Machiavellian. I agree. It'd be lower trust definitely than would Hegel's, for sure. But that's not the end point. But yes, I agree.
So we don't want either of these societies because we have good reason to think that both of these societies are going to spiral inward in some derelict manner. I mean, Hegel's because the state, as we've seen, if the state gets too powerful, I
think they both have to exist in tension, and that's where the pendulum thing comes in, right? There needs to be Nietzsche's in a Hegelian society. There needs to be Kierkegaard's in a Kantian society, right? But what the level of function of that society is going to be and what its goal, what its in Kantian good is, right, is going to depend upon who's listening to what side at any point. And you can go back to history and see. So, I mean, you're not wrong. I'm not giving a prescriptive into we should all be Kierkegaardians. That'd be a fucking nightmare.
Well, I think we are all kind of prescriptive to some sense. Once we agree that both of these things are necessary yet constantly in tension, then what other path forward besides trying to marry these ideas, take them apart and put the pieces back together into something that is more productive.
Well, I think that not to suck Ryan's dick at all, but I think that the fundamental like idea of America, right, is kind of trying to keep these competing interests all in the public square, with some restrictions on how they're gonna, co-opt and Machiavellian and put each other to the sword or whatever, right, and have different beliefs and interests, to keep them all competing and keep them all openly communicating, and hoping that something higher than themselves, their national unity, their e pluribus unum, will find commonality over difference, and based upon openly communicating about the differences between Hegel and Nietzsche and Paine and Locke and Rousseau and Hobbes and whatever, right, will, under certain negative rights imposed by the state, certain things the government can't do, the rest of the populace can come to an informed decision on the individual basis that doesn't go and kill everybody else. I think that's the best answer we have thus far. It's gone awry, obviously, but I think that notion of competing interests and keeping things in tension and not silencing anyone is, kind of what we're talking about in a more abstract sense to some extent.
Doesn't that notion lead to the individualism and specialization and ivory towers and lack of ability to communicate, because we're trying to keep it free and
certainly
competition,
permits it, right? But the thing, it permits it. The thing is, like, are the ivory towers and the specialization and the isolation of the discipline, is that actually individualized and preventing supporting competition and competition ideas? No, it's cordoning off and locking the gate behind you when you're the only one in town who has a cow.
Whoa,
that's the thing.
Hang on. That is the gatekeeping
I'm
is
talking
for
in
coordination purposes, even in the humanities. Even if it's just to signal that this person thinks the quote-unquote right way and will say the line, "You bigot." Mm-hmm. Like, for whatever reason, there is a coordination going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have a problem with is not, like, gatekeeping is not good or bad. We need some level of gatekeeping. We don't want complete gatekeeping for the reasons that you were pointing to earlier with what Ryan is talking about with natural law, where we're trying to let these things play out as they would naturally.
Right.
That said, I used to be an ANCAP because I believe so strongly in the market. But I think if you look at history through an honest lens, you see that Pareto distributions dominate, and monopolies without something else to stop them will happen. So that's why
agreement with that.
That's why we have the court system, and that's why we did antitrust. But
there'll be a new game in town that will scheme the courts a different way and also try to do exactly what antitrust broke down. No, I agree.
So should we say, oh, well, because a new version of this is going to come around, nothing we can do?
No, I think the original notion that of the government's job is to step in to protect, or the government should never overstep and take people's rights away or do things that infringe their liberty without good cause, without them actually doing something. So, for example, income tax that funds government programs that do what the government says, and they all vote for the government. Like the state control over stuff and the lack of federalism has obviously gone sideways, right? That's kind of undermined the entire idea, and the courts are barely maybe trying to address it, but not. But regardless, so what should we do is we should try to, at least, humanities departments should allow teachers to teach Socrates. Should allow them to talk to people about problems with structuralism, not fire them for doing so. The departments in electrical engineering should, if there's something helpful from some homeopathic nurse with energy and electricity from China, should allow a collaboration and get research help, fund it with research money or what. I'm saying the not shutting people up because it threatens the superstructure, and allowing people to have free thought and have that actually be the hallmark of our universities as opposed to something chased off is the model that has worked for the longest time. I don't know if it's possible anymore. I don't know how to get back to it. But I'm not saying status or anarchy. I mean,
Well, we have to accept some kind of gatekeeping, and in
Yeah, I
the
mean,
different
that's fine,
departments,
that's
going to
fine.
look different. And in the humanities, I think the strongest version of gatekeeping you could realistically do is something like enforcing a a mission statement. I would at least agree to.
I would
What-
say a curriculum, enforcing a curriculum.
Well,
on
no,
the-
no, no,
a
no, no,
couple
because
undergraduate-
once again, you can, in the humanities, we can twist and turn in this all day long, right?
Okay.
The humanities are far too hard to pin down. This was our discussion about the different sides of the campus here.
Yeah.
So, in spirit is the only way in an area where law is too difficult to be explicit or define. On my side, I would argue we probably need to do some more unifying in a more structural way in terms of and see, nobody will like this. Nobody
Like
will
goal
want to
setting,
do
like the
this.
whole, like the moonshot thing, right? Well, let's all work towards this one fucking like unachievable, semi-unachievable goal, and combine our minds. Is that what you mean, kind of?
There should be some kind of thing where the postdocs in their departments have at least, at the bare minimum, knowledge of the proximal departments to them.
Right.
Because where we get stuck in our mad crazy lands is because, yeah, like the guy down the hall can understand my paper, and maybe another guy in a university across the country can understand my paper, but other than that, that's, it's us. We're doing our own thing here, and we're probably reinventing the wheel a bazillion freaking times.
But
So
you're like talking to a community that's at least somewhat maybe competitively or maybe unitedly working towards a shared goal in just in breaking down things and discovering like something tangible, practical, helpful, like concrete.
You say that, but we are as I don't know what the psychological term for this is, but as much as people on my side of the campus like to tell ourselves we want to do things for the betterment of the world, what we really want is to have our name on a theorem.
Oh, fine. So they're not altruistic. Even if it's completely selfish, if that theorem will have legs because it actually like creates for electricity. That's good.
Well, but then I need to invent something that is so interesting and unique that it violates all of the norms of the rest of the system.
Yeah, and you'll probably be assassinated. The government will buy the patent and throw it in a fucking locker. But
Oh, come on, Hanlon, brother. Remember
hey man, fucking
Hanlon.
Tesla, brother. Anyways.
All right.
But no,
Well,
but my point, but on the humanities side, though, right? On the converse of that is you have people in departments, right? As opposed to like you can talk to these three people about the problem you're working on, whether the campus down
Hey,
the
real
hall
quick,
or
brother.
across yeah.
Can you pull me in from Discord?
Oh yeah, you bet. Want me in the live stream?
That is completely up to you either way. I didn't know if
Or what do you mean by
How?
sorry? What do you mean by pull in? Then I'm sorry.
I'm gonna, I guess, call you on Discord. I gotta switch mics and I can't take this mic.
Oh, you're fine. I
outside
can
with
just
me.
go ahead and end the stream. I was just like, I'm sure I look like I'm not even on the screen half the time. I'll just end the live.